Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Click R3 number 20. It's been a day. Lots been going on. It's kind of mayhem a little bit right now because
what day are we recording on?
It's literally the night after all the Switch 2 stuff happened, which then bled over into just the industry in general to where people are talking about a $100 GTA 6 actually not being that hard to believe right now. So just in general, the gaming industry has been shaken to its core today. No one knows which way is up. It's wild out here right now.
Shaken to its core.
It has been, man. People are questioning what's going to happen with the next generation now. They're questioning GTA 6. They're like, who knows what's about to happen? But of course, had to bring in Ryan to help make sense of it all. How's it going, Ryan?
I'm doing all right. You once again sound like you're just tipping on the verge of possible death, which it seems like you've been playing with him for a little bit there, you and Death.
I've talked a lot. I've been actually just talking a lot today.
You've had a busy day.
It has been constant talking. And even that, I had to we took one kid had karate, the other one had baseball, and it had been all over the place today. And then in between trying to record, I did the 2-hour live stream this morning for the the reaction, and then other stuff between that talking. It's just been, I feel like I've talked all day.
Oh, you're going to do some more talking because we can't, John, we can't forget PlayStation. Obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it's just everything that's going on today. While it has been a lot of Nintendo focused stuff, I'm looking at this like, man, this has serious ramifications in general for the industry, gaming, PlayStation, Microsoft, digital games, physical games. It's madness out here.
Indeed, there are certainly some points to cover for anybody that plays video games. So we'll be getting into that.
Can I ask you, Ryan, later. Before we start, can I ask you how your Final Fantasy VII journey is going?
It's been slow, John. I'm in the Coral region and I am still there.
Okay.
I played a few nights ago. I just doing the side stuff still. So I'm genuinely thinking man, this is going to be a slow burn for me.
I told you.
I'm not even joking when it's will this get done in the calendar year? Will this get done before GTA 6? Will this get done before DS2? I'm not sure, but I'm trying.
I'm gonna give you some advice though, Ryan, is beat the game as fast as you can, because then you can go back to all the areas over leveled and you can blast through everything faster.
I know, but I do like the sort of holistic approach and the sort of challenge of not being over leveled. So, I mean, that's just how I don't want to have to sort of not speed run it, but I do want to go at the pace that I'm usually comfortable with.
Right. I did finish up Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I'm actually kind of weighing the option for the platinum trophy on it now.
In what way?
I've beaten the game. I'm doing some of the side quest stuff now, and it doesn't take long, but it is getting kind of Ubisoft monotonous, that Ubisoft formula kicking in a bit. Sure. And I'm I feel like 20 more hours will get me the platinum. So I have 33 of the trophies now. And I looked, some of them are funny. It's shoot a guard in the knee, because it's referencing, Elder Scrolls or whatever, as a joke. Distract the same guard with a bell 3 times. I'm I could knock those out pretty easily. But then it's do all these specific points. I'm I don't know.
Say we call those miscellaneous trophies in the business, but it sounds like you might have 1 or 2 that are sort of the overarching end goal of and here's all the X, Y, and Z things that must be done.
Yeah, I still think I'm gonna do it just because I'm right up against. It seems like you said the miscellaneous trophies minus the couple that are do all of this specific location.
Yeah.
So I'm right up against it. I think 20 hours will get me to the platinum, which would probably be about 80 hours total then. Some 60 hours right now in the game.
That's actually quite a bit longer than I thought it would be, but that's still considering that you are doing everything, because you're already done with the story.
Yeah, I'm done with the story. And they also had an epilogue and everything too that I finished.
Okay.
That was all still there. So that's come together very nicely. And then I started up Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive, because I wanted to go back to that game on the Switch. But for the most part, PlayStation 5's been Assassin's Creed Shadows. Still the best looking PS5 Pro sort of game that I've seen in terms of the open world. I don't know if you've looked into that at all, but it seems like it doesn't have PSSR, and they're going to add it at some point.
I did, yes, because that's the weird thing, is that Ubisoft said prior it will use PSSR, by the time it came out, the Digital Foundry guys were like, "We don't think this is PSSR," and they're like, "Yeah, it's not. we'll use it later."
And but that's the thing. It looks really good now. I'm curious if it's going to look better with PSS. Like, is it going to look better? Because whatever Ubisoft's doing right now, it already looks really good.
Hey, it's just like their in-house TAA or whatever they're using, but it produced good results. I mean, generally speaking, it seems like it's a very solid pro enhancement.
Should sharpen it up, I guess. Yeah. That's interesting. But yeah, that's if people out there have a PS5 Pro and they've been looking for a game to test out their OLED or something with, it's probably that one. The open world looks incredible. So, but that's basically what I've been up to.
Very good, very good. Well, John, you want to get into some stories here? Got a handful of things to talk about. That is mostly PlayStation. We'll get to the Nintendo stuff later, but I want to kick it off as always with our PS Plus lineup. We have the Essential April lineup revealed live now on PSN. What do you think of this? RoboCop Rogue City, PS5, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, PS4, PS5, and Digimon Story, Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, PS4. A very wordy title on that one.
I think this is one of the best. I think one of the best PlayStation Plus essentials we've seen in a long time. As like just a complete 3 games.
Really,
3 good games. I do. I think this is one of the better ones. RoboCop is awesome. If you have not played it, anyone out there, but if you like RoboCop, I feel like you've probably played it. But if you've kind of been aware of RoboCop and you're looking for a game that is just like straight up arcade action shooting fun, this is it. And it still tries to make it like RoboCop in general, the first movie, not like the 2013. When was that? That was that 2012 or 2013?
I wouldn't know.
they did it again, and it was like PG-13, so they removed a lot of the violence from it. Whereas the original RoboCop was like ultra violent. This game also plays into that. It is quite violent, but it's really fun. And it has like RPG elements and stuff to it too. So it's very cool. I like the game quite a bit. I think it's worth at this point just downloading. Then you said Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which we actually played that here and there. Me, Sean, Nate. I don't think MG did he? I know me, Sean, and Nate played it quite a bit on Xbox when it first came out because it went into Game Pass. So I was like, oh, we already have it. Let's try it out. It was a fun multiplayer game with friends, kind of like that asymmetric.
Yeah, like one's the killer, right, and then the others.
Well, you have like the family, and then everyone else, survivors, trying to escape like the farm, kind of. And it's actually really cool the way they have it set up where the survivors can do certain things better and they can hide in certain areas. And it's kind of like a cat and mouse game, but I think it actually works really well for that asymmetric multiplayer. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's RoboCop's the one I hear a lot about as far as like, even if you don't care about the IP, which I would garner is probably a good amount of people. It's like, no, it's still a good like sci-fi shooter. I haven't heard anything about these other 2 games. So I would.
Digimon Cyber Sleuth is the more traditional RPG Digimon game, but it also has like elements of raising the different Digimon and stuff too. But it plays closer to like a turn-based Final Fantasy or something with Digimon.
Fair enough. This lineup, I was like, oh, this seems like a very random assortment of games.
You're a Yu-Gi-Oh person. You're not a Digimon person.
Well, this is true, but I didn't say anything. I know.
I get those. So that I get those mixed up. I'm like, oh no, Ryan likes Yu-Gi-Oh, not Digimon.
I know there's Digimon fans out there. I'm more power to them. I feel like if you're a Digimon fan, you played this game 6 years ago. So
yes,
who am I to say?
Good game though.
Oh, next up, we have a new PS5 system software update. This one's 25.02, 11.00. This is the one that went into beta about a month ago, so there's like nothing big in here. The major change is that they've made it simpler to view details about activities. Activity details are now fully displayed on cards. Potential spoilers are still hidden. Unicode 16.0 emojis are now supported in messages. And there's new parental controls. And they've always, as always, they improved the system software performance stability and improved the messages and usability on some screens. I did a before and after on cards. I can't see a difference.
I knew this wasn't a big update because I didn't see the Ryan upload.
Well, usually, like I used to do those when like we had at least like 15 plus changes like on the change log. They're doing like just 4 or 5 things at the most, and even in this scenario, like I booted up a few games, I could not find a difference when they say, we've made it simpler to view details about activities. What did you do? That's a problem with cards. They're just so developer dependent. Maybe there are some cases where there's a change. I couldn't find one. This is like a Nothing Burger update. It's weird.
Yeah, it's funny. I have it, and it's like it boots up. It's like you're in the beta for whatever this is. I'm like, oh, cool, and it's legitimately like nothing really.
You didn't use any of the new emojis, John? Jesus.
No, I thought wasn't there a big thing about you were like you can't send emojis or like there was an issue. You actually mentioned that at one point. I thought
not emojis. It was. I think you're referring to the web browser links. You can't send those anymore.
That's what it was.
Yeah, can't have fun on PlayStation. Can't access Pornhub. Which is what people usually do with that. We do have some other adjacent PlayStation Store news, though, which is the PS Store wish list. The size has increased. So I don't know if you know, it's like 100. That's the cap. So every so often you see people complain about this, but spotted on Recent Era's PS Studios thread, apparently it is now above 100. You can go up to like 188, which is a very strange number.
Interesting number.
I haven't tested it. I think I've got like 6 games wish listed. I just like it's periodically you see people like somebody on Reddit will be like, increase the wish list size. My God.
So I've never really used the wish list feature that much though, to be honest.
I mean, it's handy because you can tell the console to notify you when like a game goes on sale on your wish list.
Sure.
Yeah, you log in, it'll tell you it's on sale. I mean, it's handy, but you know, I would have to imagine there's not that many people going over 100, but now you can.
Right.
Now you can do that. We've got some Last of Us news. The Last of Us Part 2 remastered came out on PC probably by the time people are watching this, April 3rd. There's trophies, the overlay menu, optional PS and login bonus, things like that. Just also important to note that there is 4 new maps for the no return mode. There's also new characters, Bill and Marlene. You can play as those 2 characters. And these are coming to PC and PS5 as well. So if you're a PlayStation player, you'll get this bonus content. And adjacent to that is this rumor reported by Bilbo Kuhn, writing for Deal Labs, that there's a new physical PS5 version of this game coming. They don't know if it's the first game, second, or both, but they do know it's a special edition being priced at $109.99 USD or 119.99 euros, and they expect the announcement to be within a 2-month window, which is usually how like Deal Labs works because they see like marketing material or something, so they usually don't know exactly like how imminent this is. But John, is this not like just a dual pack, and it probably comes out?
I think that's what it is, right? A dual pack. So I have to imagine it's just going to sit alongside the HBO series, right? So somebody finds the HBO series, they start binging it, and they're like, I want more of this. Okay, it's a game. Where do I start? You don't have to start anywhere other than this double pack that I assume they're going to name in a way that's like, just buy this and you're good.
Yeah, The Last of Us complete edition or something.
Exactly.
So maybe new art.
Is it going to be just 2 discs in there, or do you think they're going to set it up? I mean, they're not going to be able to fit it all on one disc. I mean, I know they have like Ultra HD Blu-ray and stuff, but it would have been really cool if they could have done a whole new version that just attached both together on one disc and made it super easy for people mainstream wise who decide to buy into a PS5, I guess, because the HBO's look, I'm sure there are people out there who do that, but otherwise, even if it's just all in one pack, it's a 2 disc set. People are used to that from that world anyway, where they buy Blu-ray sets and stuff with multiple discs. So that's what I assume it is, though, unless you have a different take, Ryan. Maybe there's something you could think of.
I'm sure I think there's a few variations this could look like, you know, whether it's like a singular case with 2 discs, which they can do, or it's like kind of a thicker like slip cover pack and you just get both games included and they don't actually make any changes because you're actually getting like the regular prints in a slip cover. Whatever the case is, I would have to imagine that is what this is. So we'll see that very, very soon.
I'm sure it'll help some of the sales, but it's still for like a lot of us who have already played through the games multiple times, even at this point, after buying The Last of Us Part 1 again, it's kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, more Last of... I mean, that's the headline. Sony's selling The Last of Us again. But the good news is, John, Naughty Dog does still have Intergalactic coming. But the question is when. So recently on the PlayStation Studios OT subreddit, or not subreddit, just the thread on Recent Era, Bloomberg's Jason Schreier clarified that both Intergalactic and also The Witcher 4 in this conversation are not going to be out next year. It is instead 2027 probably, which, speaking with IGN on the red carpet premiere for The Last of Us HBO Season 2, Neil Druckmann did say that the game is playable, and he also said it's really good right now, saying, and I quote here, It's really good. I'm so excited to finally put gameplay out to the world and show people about it because we just showed you the very, very, very tip of the iceberg. The game goes pretty deep beyond that. That was probably the big question mark with this game. They showed I would argue, maybe a fair amount initially for the first time seeing it, which is like in-engine footage, a plot synopsis, and like a small little snippet of like Jordan attacking like this big robot creature or something. So it's like, ooh, is this actually a 26 game? That might have been maybe a best case scenario, but it's looking more like 27.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because this, I assume you have it down, and then this feels like this is going to be their one really big PS5 game.
Yeah, that's the consternation surrounding this, because it's so easy to look at that news and go, okay, so you're telling me we went the entire PlayStation 5 generation, barring remasters or ports, and this is the only new Naughty Dog game coming out on the console, which is basically going to be right next to PlayStation 6. And that's kind of insane to think about. I think before even going further, we should note, and this isn't really like news in the grand scheme of things, but it did make some headlines. Naughty Dog's other single player project.
Yes.
This was coming from Daniel RPK over on their Patreon, which every time I hear about Daniel RPK, I always hear that they're just kind of dubious as far as like a source, because they do more movie industry, Marvel news. So it seems like games are very miss, more so, and not even hit or miss, like mostly miss. But they're claiming that Naughty Dog's other single player game is being directed by Sean Escaggi, who was the director of Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So the game's been in development for about 3 years, they say. Which the reason why I'm saying this isn't news is because like back in December 2023, when Naughty Dog announced the closure, or rather the cancellation of The Last of Us Online, if you remember that blog post, they said towards the very bottom, we have more than one ambitious single player game in development. So the hierarchy for Naughty Dog would have been, you had this team doing Last of Us Online that closed. You had these 2 single player projects. One was very far along, and that's your Intergalactic, and that's being directed by Neil and I think Matthew Gallant. And this other one is Sean Escaggi, which he came back to Naughty Dog. Well, that would have been about 3 years ago. So presumably that's the project that Sean has right now. And that game's likely further away, but I guess this is where I'd kick the conversation over to you, because there has been some curiosity as to what that game is. Maybe it is a smaller Lost Legacy style game, which means you might turn that around a little bit faster,
Yeah, a lot of people immediately went, it's another Uncharted game. And
but is it? Is it?
Yeah, that's the thing though, because it could very easily be a new IP, and we would have a hard time guessing at all as to what it is. A new Uncharted game would be a safer bet, although we kind of know who the main character would be already for the next one.
Well, yes. I mean, are you referring to like, because here's the thing, the missing context of this conversation is always like that commercial Sony did with the where they were teasing Cassie Drake.
Yep.
And it's like, that seems very purposeful. That was years ago now at this point too. And it's like nothing ever came of it. I don't know if you remember this too. There was a job listing about, I want to say 2 years ago now at this point, and it was I think it was out of San Diego, but it was saying that this team would work in collaboration closely with Naughty Dog on a big cinematic AAA game. And it's like, well, geez, I wonder what the hell that could be. And maybe that's their way of sort of offloading that work of doing a new Uncharted, because Naughty Dog would be involved, but maybe they're not leading the game. Although if Sean Escaggi's directing, maybe they are. But it's just, some food for thought.
Yeah, either way, you think this is a PS6 game?
Well, if it's smaller in scope, I mean, maybe this would be like kind of a surprise if it is like, hey, and guess what? This thing's coming out like near Intergalactic or something.
Sure. So they could maybe push out 2 games in like 14 months or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know if that would like really save the sort of dearth of like the lack of Naughty Dog this generation, but I guess it would certainly be better than 1.
Yeah, no, it would. It would definitely be better than just 1, because it's kind of like how we think of Rockstar, where they have that list of games and the timeline, and it just keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. It's kind of like what Naughty Dog is, although who knows what that alternate universe would have looked like where The Last of Us multiplayer came out and it was awesome, and how different would Naughty Dog look right now if that was going on and then they were also presenting Intergalactic. They say they couldn't have done Intergalactic if they did the multiplayer, but what if they could have, and it would have been this, I feel like Naughty Dog would have just been looked at completely different as opposed to now, where it's like, oh, they're doing the Last of Us multi-pack next. Oh boy. I mean, when we get fast forward, we'll say to 2027, Intergalactic comes out, 95 on Metacritic or something crazy. Obviously, then the tide would have turned and people would have been like, okay, we're back on the Naughty Dog bandwagon. But they're in just such a weird spot right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any really getting around it outside of if they do deliver on this game. What would be like, detrimental is if Intergalactic comes out and let's say it, is like good, but maybe not that sort of the high expectation of like kind of what Bethesda went through with Starfield. That mounting pressure of like, can they do it again? And let's say it's a good game and you've got people that enjoy it, but it doesn't necessarily land the same way Skyrim did,
Yeah, because Naughty Dog and Sony, they're looking for those like Game of the Year nominations, and oh my gosh, this is incredible. And like The Last of Us Part 2, there was so much discussion around that game, so much controversy back and forth, and people still do it now, which tells me it had a huge effect on everyone, and it's still memorable. So that they win Game of the Year, even though people go on and on about the sales. I mean, what the last figure we heard was 10 million for the game, right? It was something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the game on paper did well.
Yeah,
it relative to other. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's going to come down to Intergalactic at this point for Naughty Dog. They have this other game, but we assume right now Intergalactic is the next one up. But 2027, I was kind of hoping this was a 2026 game, but
I was really hoping it was 26. But a part of me was like, that might be like wishful thinking,
Yeah, sure. But I guess we'll see 2 years from now.
2 years from now. Well, I mean, to Neil's point, like, and it's not shocking for like a director to say like, hey, this game I'm directing, it's really good. But I do
he's not going to bury it.
I do want to see the gameplay though. I want to see that gameplay for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I want to see what it looks like with the HUD and everything on screen, especially if they were taking like Elden Ring inspiration, kind of.
Yeah, the lack of
HUD goes away with Elden Ring a lot.
Lack of HUD. Let's imagine that they open up and there's just, you don't get much of anything.
Mm-mm. I would like to see that.
Well, let's move on to some games for potentially this year. So we have a rumor for this this God of War thing that's been going kind of back and forth now at this point. So apparently it's not a collection, but
we're back to square one.
It's a side story. Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb clarified that there's no remaster collection, but there is a new side story project coming this year. And yes, it is a video game, just to clarify. So it's not like a comic book or some sort of weird, PS production. He elaborated on his previous post, because if you remember, this kind of fell back on Jeff when he said, looking at the upcoming 20th anniversary, I think the remaster was around this time. So he was just clarifying that when that happened, he was never told about a remaster collection. He was looking at the previous rumors, asked a source about those rumors that saw about the remaster. So I know we're kind of going in a roundabout way here, but he was told then that no God of War would show up at the previous state of play, but it could show up at the anniversary. So it's kind of this weird and in a way misleading thing, because it's like, well, maybe you should have had some due diligence just to clarify that it even was a remaster in the first place. But then digging into it, he's like, oh, it's actually not a remaster, which that goes back to Tom Henderson, where he also at the time said, hey, I'm not looking too much into this, but I've heard there's a side story, young Kratos going back to Greece kind of thing, but don't take that to the bank because I didn't like really look into it. So at the very minimum, we now have like two sources kind of saying that it's actually not a remaster, but rather a new game coming out this year, which is the clip. That is what he said too. So right. What do you make of this? Like,
I don't know. I guess as they say, young Kratos back to like Greek mythology, and it, I guess, being kind of, well, okay. So I guess without spoiling it, God of War Valhalla, or the Valhalla expansion, right? I don't know if you had a chance to play through that, Ryan.
Right. So I know in Valhalla they explore his past, so there's like
that's what a lot
assets.
Of it is.
Yeah.
Yes. So you go through it and you will have glimpses of his past and stuff. And at the end, when you beat it and you do the whole everything in that, it'll give you kind of like this vision or alternate ending where I did kind of look at it and go, huh. Okay. Like it does kind of like hint at stuff that kind of go into the past, especially since, as you say, you see kind of the assets and stuff are there. you're like, huh, that's odd. It's part of this deal, like this free DLC, which by the way, it was very good. Valhalla is, I think it was an awesome free. I think I spent like, I feel like it was a 15 or 20 hour experience for me. How much time I put into that. And when you see that play out, it does make you wonder if there were plans for, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's just, they put it into this DLC and that's just why they have the assets. They had them left over. Let's use it here. Now I'm wondering, okay, maybe that is there just to set up, I guess, somewhat of a prequel, going back to the past, young Kratos. But then I'm thinking, are they going to go back in the style we've been playing God of War in the Norse mythology, or do they have to go back to the old gameplay for that in a smaller title? Like, I don't, this isn't being talked up as being the big $70 next big AAA God of War from what they were kind of kicking around. So do you think if they do this, do you think they'd stick with the closer over the shoulder, more personal old Kratos like setup? Or do you think they would pull the camera back and just be like, start mashing buttons?
That is a good question that I genuinely don't, I wouldn't, I don't know. I actually would humor that they go back to the, like, just, sort of button mash gameplay with fixed camera angles. I don't know if that's like, because it's like, because conceivably there's maybe a direction here that makes sense in both ways, because they've, as far as like trying to get this thing shipped in a reasonable time, like obviously they have foundational gameplay mechanics of Kratos with the Blades of Chaos, with the modern entries, mind you. So it's not like they can't keep doing that. But the fixed camera angles, I mean, that's, as far as I understand it, something that's fairly doable, and you could go back to that just as well. And I almost feel like that might be welcomed, to have a really pretty looking classic feeling God of War game,
Yeah, I think this would be a good way to kind of test the waters a bit, to do it again. I know they like the like cinematic narrative stuff where it's like, it looks like a movie when it's playing out, and the older God of War looked more like, I guess, a video game, if that makes sense. Like, because you're jumping way up in the air and you're doing all this acrobatic stuff, and orbs are flying all over the place. So I think it would be cool if they went back and tried that again, even if it's not a full price game, just to see what, maybe this is like a 50 or even 60. You could say 60 because we'll get to some of the game pricing stuff, but at least until now, Sony's had it at 70 for like the big game. I feel like they could do that, 50 or $60 or something, and just go back to a smaller story where it is that older arcade style gameplay and less about the, hey, let's have a 15-minute cinematic that's like super well done and like over the top and looks kind of borderline like a movie at times. I don't think you always need that. You could try this and see if the gameplay can win over the crowd.
I don't think you have to compromise on it being this big cinematic epic. It just would have the fixed camera angles like it used to. You'd still have the old style gameplay, but they could even still do the one shot shtick, because if you do the fixed camera angles, you play the old God of War games, that camera follows you pretty much everywhere. There's hardly like these direct cuts until you get to like an actual scene.
Right.
You can maintain the cinematic feel, and it'll look damn good. Obviously, last time we had that kind of game was Ascension on PS3, basically, as far as the gameplay goes. So it'll look pretty. To be honest, my only hang up is like, man, we've done a lot of grease. Like, that's what was cool about Norse. It's like,
yeah,
we're talking God of War 1, 2, 3 Ascension, prequels, Betrayal on mobile, like, and it's like, it's a lot of grease. I'm almost, like, when I initially heard these rumors, like when Tom Henderson put the news out, I'm like, Grease again? Even if it's a side story, it's like,
yeah, it's popular, and it is kind of like, hey, let's dive into Kratos' past after kind of hinting at that in Valhalla, and we'll bring our new graphical engine technology, whatever, to that era and show it off again. And I know God of War 3 is also a very good looking game, but like, come on, we've seen Ragnarok and like next level stuff, right? So it is tough, but I feel like if you were going to do a new realm or mythology or whatever, you would save it for the next big release, the next big one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I just would have thought, like, because Norse has only had 2 games, you could do a side story Norse game. Now, you wouldn't be a young Kratos, but just for like for for the talking points, like I wouldn't mind a third Norse game that's a side story.
I think people want the young, angry Kratos.
I know. I think people would like to see that. I wouldn't mind it too. I mean, that's the thing, is that this was apparently like, oh, they would have liked to announce it during the 20th anniversary, but for some reason, and these things are kind of hard to align just logistically speaking, so they pushed it back maybe. But what's also kind of nutty is just like, so yes, the remaster thing isn't happening. Now, John, didn't I say before, I just didn't, I never like believed in those remaster rumors. I don't know why we were putting weight in it. The only rational thing that I had was like, well, if they do, I guess it makes sense for that IP. But I don't know. I wasn't seeing it.
Just put them in the PlayStation Plus classics and move on.
That's what I thought. I'm like, well, you've got, just have Implicit do it. They do PS1, PS2, and now PSP. Well, PS1, PSP, now PS2 games. You just do it that way.
Load it up, get your 10 to 15, maybe even, I guess 20, maybe they try to get 20 for God of War 2 or something. Get your 10, 15, or 20, get the PSP games in there, get the PS2 games in there, and just move on.
That was always my line of thinking, but people put a lot of stock in those remaster rumors for sure.
I think it sounds cool. Like, hey, we're going to do 1 and 2 and 3, and we're going to fix up the visuals and it's going to look incredible. And it's like, okay, well, I would buy that. Otherwise, drop it in the classics collection. And if people want to buy it, they can, they're separate, or, we can just download it if we have premium.
Yeah. I mean, I would have liked it. I wouldn't have minded if they went out of their way to like give those games special treatment, but it just does.
Because you're picturing that physical edition. That's why.
I mean, come on, John, that would be sexy.
You're not getting it if it goes in the premium.
God of War 1, 2, 3 on one Blu-ray.
That would be cool. Yeah, they could do some really cool box art with that.
Yeah, it'd be tight. It'd be cool. Let's move on to Housemarque and Saros. We have a small little news item here. So speaking with the Finnish publication Helsingin Sanomat, Housemarque CEO was discussing the studio's acquisition by Sony, and he said that outside of some cultural changes on the studio, like adjusting to HR and things like that, it was really the new resources that let them move offices and make a game like Saros possible, saying that if they were independent, it would not be possible to invest that much into a game, which we also learned that the game went into full production in 2022. And according to Helsingin, the publication, so not Housemarque CEO, but they're claiming that the budget for Saros is allegedly 70 million euros. So kind of it's a lot of money, but modest as far as like, you look at some of the more recent larger PS Studio titles. But this is the Housemarque story. So it's the recap I always like to give people is that, this team was always known for these arcadey bullet hell twin stick shooters. They did, after, putting this really depressing blog post on their site saying that, arcade's dead, these games aren't financially viable anymore. During that time period, when they announced that, they were working on, and John, you're going to have to hold on to your chair here. They were working on like PvP, like a battle royale style type game or some shit like that. I forget what it was called. There's like I think alpha gameplay out there or something. I think they were doing like 2 projects like that. They were definitely doing some kind of multiplayer like live service thing. But
oh gosh,
within that period, they did drop those games and they moved on to Returnal. And it's like yeah, right. So I mean, it's one of those things where like if we're talking about mega consolidation and big companies that are worth, billions, trillions possibly, and they're acquiring these smaller teams, there are good examples where it kind of plays out in a pretty favorable way. I'm quite happy that Housemarque was able to, get the funding to do something like Returnal and now step it up a notch with Saros.
But this is what this is what we talk about with PlayStation and many other companies now when it comes to the budgets getting out of control. This sounds more reasonable. It's like, oh, okay, it's 70 million euros. So it's like, what is that? 76 or $77 million right now with exchange rate, something like that. So you sell 2 million copies and you're like break even kind of right in there because after taxes and stuff. That makes more sense. That's like, okay, that's a more attainable goal than, man, we need 7 million units to break even. It's like, what? Let's keep it. I think that's good. That's manageable. It allows them to make these kind of games that I don't expect them to release this game and they jump to like Last of Us numbers or something, but not every game has to do that. This is one that genuinely is interesting and is different from anything else PlayStation makes. So it makes sense to have it, and it's fun. We haven't played the newest one, the new game yet, but Returnal was awesome. So
very true. Yeah, I mean, Returnal, the only official figure we had was 600,000.
Yeah,
that must have been good enough. Granted, the budget for Returnal probably wasn't 70 million. This site actually, they compare it to Alan Wake 2, where that was a similar budget is what they claim, which is, if anything, still slightly concerning in that we know it took that game quite a while to start making money. So it's still not necessarily easy.
Alan Wake 2 is kind of a weird game though, where I think Housemarque in general have the right idea in let's get the player playing in like the first 15 minutes. Let's get them going. Like, action combats. Returnal gets you moving quick.
Yeah, very quick.
That was the big thing. I assume you saw the presentation from Team Asobi where they were talking about Astrobot.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their big things was it's like 98% gameplay and like 2% cutscenes or something.
Yep. Yeah, they throw you in. And there's going to be a lot more eyes on this game now. Returnal was still, even today, it's still kind of like, I don't want to say unknown, but it's just
not enough people have played it. Say it, just put it out there.
I'll say it with my full chest. Not enough people have played it, but it's like they were a relatively unknown team before Returnal, basically. So now it's like there's more eyes on them. So Saros might turn out to be their biggest game yet.
It is funny. A few weeks ago, I did fire up Resogun again.
Yeah, you did.
I was like, man,
you did.
They really went from like this to Returnal. That's crazy. It is pretty funny, which does make me think, okay, what are they gonna do with Saros?
And let's not. I mean, this. Not. I'm not accusing you here, but I want to make sure we're not doing any revisionist history. That was the best PS4 launch game. Sorry, Nick. Sorry, Nick. Sorry, Killzone slander. Sorry, Killzone Shadowfall. But you got a PS4 back in 2013, PS Plus, because they were like, "Yep, you got to buy this shit now. You want to play online." Sorry, buddy. Look at the other guy. They messed up way worse than us. We're allowed to charge this time. And then guess what? They gave you the best game for the launch day. Resogun. Oh, it's still so good. Save the last humans, John. Save the last humans. Let's move on to some new Ghost of Yotei details over on the official landing page for the game on PlayStation.com. There's some updated text that gives us just some more detailed plot synopsis where it says, and I quote, "Filled with fury and determination, Atsu will hunt down those responsible for the death of her family and exact her revenge. Every odd job and bounty will provide the coin she needs for her journey, but how she fights, survives, and evolves the legend of the ghost will be up to you. Ghost of Yotei features new mechanics, gameplay improvements, and even new weapons for Atsu to master, including Odachi, Kusarigama, and dual katanas. Dual katanas. If that was written in like hiragana or katakana, I actually probably could have said that properly. If I read it in English, I get fucked up. But yeah, I it's the same thing I've said before with this game. I just hope that the way you choose to do combat will actually sort of deviate her story a bit. Not to say I need like multiple different endings, but with Tsushima, it was like no matter what you chose to do, the game kind of always steers you in like one direction, basically.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if they play around with just the path that you take through the game. I still need to see it looks somewhat different than Tsushima. I still need to see more about this game, gameplay wise, and like a serious sit down with it. Hey, here's the new things we've done. Because we haven't heard, we've heard stuff from it. We haven't seen as much as I thought we would have by now. And I'm starting to think more and more, Ryan, that this might be like August or September for this game now.
I'm thinking, because obviously they just updated this site. It's like, why would they do that? Probably because we're going to see more of this game in May. I'm thinking May, that state of play right before the Summer Game Fest shenanigans, and I think that's probably where we're going to get that release date. And I'm thinking it's probably going to be positioned just slightly after DS2.
Okay. So you think you're gonna be like over the summer for this one?
I mean, ideally you do want this to, as most other publishers, avoid GTA 6.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, I think you do want to be out before GTA 6.
Oh yeah. Ideally.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's what they're really planning on doing. I mean, that's what we were hearing out of GDC is that, and that was like a big headline too, is like, yeah, publishers, unsurprisingly, they know it's like it's a meteor coming and nobody wants to be near the impact. And it's like, well, SIE historically, they do kind of not give a shit because they'll put Horizon next to Breath of the Wild, they'll put it next to Elden Ring, they'll even cannibalize their own games. They'll just ship big things right next to each other, and they really just don't. If a game's ready, they ship it. But you have to think this is the one game where they're like, yeah, we'll especially for them because it's beneficial for SIE. They're a platform holder. The context for them is like, sure, we'll give you all the runway you need. Just help us sell consoles.
Oh yeah, especially if they do end up. Well, we haven't seen it because the marketing hasn't really started. We've seen one trailer for GTA 6. We don't know. The next one might show up and be like, hey, best way to play it's PS5 Pro. Like the Sony marketing kind of comes in a bit. Then yes, you're right. You got to get out of the way of GTA 6 because that's being directly attached to your console, probably right around holiday time.
Yep. Well, that's a good point too, John. So side note, do you think Sony has the marketing agreement with this game? Because if you look back historically, I mean, there's PS3 bundles, there's PS4 bundles. They with this console cycle, what was it? The second PS5 presentation, they opened with GTA 5, the PS5 version. You remember that on PS Plus? It's like it's there.
I kind of think Sony is going to get the marketing on this, and it actually makes more sense in the long run because if they can get the marketing on this and just push more and more people to get it on the PlayStation. I mean, the big thing is going to be an online experience. Shark cards, microtransactions are going to go crazy. That is a crowd that will buy microtransaction after microtransaction, like they've proven it. And Sony's going to benefit heavily from that. So yeah, it would be worth the money to put into marketing GTA 6 for that long run, because it's going to then lead to, PS6. I'm sure. Look, we'll get how many versions of GTA 6 do you think we're going to get? We'll probably get a PS7 version of it. Let's be real.
Yeah.
So yes, I would do everything possible if I'm Sony to make that deal happen and to be part of that. What feels like it's going to be a sprint to release after that interview that what's his name, Strauss Zelnick had with what was it, Wall Street something? Who are they? What are these people talking to? What is this? It's like who do we got to talk to let people know that the PS5 is going to have 3D? Get Wired on the phone. It's like, what? Okay. They do that a lot. So now he's talking to Wall Street, which I guess in the long run for him trying to push the stock makes sense because he basically reassured everyone, hey, it's still happening. We're just doing a shorter marketing run. And, the groans probably came from all the publishers. They're like, oh, come on, get us the release date. I don't know. When that trailer drops, that second one, and they're like, hey, it's out in 4 months. And it's the summertime, it's going to be chaos.
Indeed. So I would think like Yote's probably before the game. If they can get it out in time, yeah.
Yes. July, August, somewhere in there. That time.
You would think. Unless they're bold. Maybe they say.
I wouldn't get bold with that.
Maybe they're bold. They're like, yeah, well, it's kind of different. One's in like Miami. This one's, it's old Japan.
I'm sorry. I'm a big fan of Tsushima. If they both drop in that same 2-week span, I'll play whichever one comes out first. But once wherever GTA 6 is, I'm playing that right away.
Well, would you play Yote, but you drop it for GTA 6, and it wouldn't be the reverse. You wouldn't drop 6 for Yote. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's just I think a lot of people probably share that sentiment.
You're not wrong. This I found pretty interesting. Phantom Blade Zero director wants to go back to the PS1 and PS2 roots. Phantom Blade Zero, of course, that PS5 console exclusive, had a lot of gameplay debuts during a lot of the summer events, if you remember. So this game was getting a lot of press back then. So speaking with Eurogamer in a new interview, the director for Phantom Blade Zero talked about how they're approaching the project, and they gave a really interesting quote here where they said, "We want to get back to the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 era, when the games were not so big, the budget's not sky high, the team manageable, and all the developers were passionate and creative with experience. It's like a bigger indie game with the budget and with the experience and with a stable hand. And everything feels so integrated from the starting point when you press down the start button to the finish point of the staff list." This, if anything, is more pertinent given a lot of the discussions surrounding pricing for games. How do we sort of start controlling budgets here? You go back to team sizes for, well, PS1's pretty dramatic. I mean, you would have like a 15-person team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like one guy would like do like all of sound and programming and lighting. You'd have like one guy do all, and now games in the AAA space are, so specialized as far as like one person does a handful of these assets, you know what I mean? So that's what you get with the 100-person teams, but maybe it is, going back to the drawing board here and trying to stay a little bit more lean and efficient, right?
Yeah, that's the tough part because expectations keep growing, but we have the diminishing returns really kicking in to where if you spend $100 million more, it doesn't come through like it used to. So it's like, was it worth spending $100 million because we wanted there to be the full animation all the time to take this item from a person, or do we just pan the camera up a little bit and you never see the exchange? You see them kind of moving a little bit, things like that, right? It's like those little things I get. They're probably thinking this is going to like be the big push for us, and this is really going to push us over the top, and then the game might not land. It's like, oh, well, we probably didn't have to do that then. And I feel like that there's probably points that they can cut even further. So one example is that Intergalactic trailer, right, that we had looked incredible. There was one part where she was putting her jacket on, right? Like she's putting the jacket on, goes out of camera frame just long enough to get the jacket on, and they just cut to a different model for her. Like that's clever because it shows they're starting to put it on, and then, but obviously they could have been like, yeah, it needs to be shown to be put on. But I don't think anyone really noticed except for a few people out there. So I think it is time for some of these studios and publishers and stuff to start thinking about creative ways to, yes, control these budgets. Otherwise, man, it's tough. These studios, dude, they miss once and it's over. It feels like.
Yeah, it's like all risk. It's the riskiest endeavor nowadays for some of these larger titles. It's scary.
Yeah, and so much of that money goes into the presentation and the graphics and stuff. I would prefer them to cut back, say, I don't know, just throw like $10 million, but then take $5 million and put it into the gameplay or something. Like I'd rather them do that. Like figure out new ways to make the game interesting, and then be like, hey, sometimes the foliage doesn't move when you walk through it. You might clip through it here and there. It's like, oh, okay. But it's really fun. Like parts of this are really fun that we worked on. We spent time. Okay, cool. It's kind of like how Insomniac did that with Ratchet and Clank. People had video of Ratchet clipping through the bushes or something, but then you're just blowing everything up in one level. It's like, I don't care if the bush doesn't move when I walk through it.
It's the tried and true conversation of like, oh, did you see how Kratos and Atreus got into that boat? That's the same fucking animation from 2018.
I know, I can't. But no one really cares. It's like, come on.
Some people do, I guess. I don't know.
That fruit stand got abused in, what was it, Halo? And stuff. Look at the fruit doesn't move when I shoot it. It's like, why are you shooting the fruit?
Oh man. Hey, it's though, it's like the Yakuza team. They're like, yeah, we reuse all this shit.
That's what you should be doing. Dude,
that's how we get all these games out.
RGT knows what they're doing. They're just like, look, we're making the games fun and wacky and weird, but we're making it for the fans of the series, and we're not getting too crazy with it. And instead of making a game once every 5 years, we'll make a game a year or something like that, and the fans love it. So keep doing that.
Yeah, they've got a mod. It's weird. Like getting back to the exact quote, right, of like all the PS1 and PS2 days. I feel like that team has just stayed in that era. It's kind of, and it's not to discredit their games or the quality of them.
They're very fun.
They've just figured it out. It's, well, if anything, they haven't figured it out. They've just kept doing it and not lost that approach, if that makes sense.
I would rather have consistent releases that make less money than trying really hard to release one game every 6 years and making a ton of money. Because if you miss on that release, dude, you're in so much trouble. Whereas if you miss on one of the 5 releases in 6 years, it's like, okay, well, we got another one coming. We'll make it work there too. So I prefer that. I wouldn't mind if we went back to an era of 10 to 15 hour games that are just really fun.
I'm right there with you. Although I do always want to, advocate for just a little bit of everything. Have some of
Sure.
the big guys spend 7-something goddamn years making the next Grand Theft Auto. And then I also want these other teams to, maybe not feel that pressure to deliver a 50-hour epic when it could just as easily be 20, and I'd be happy with that.
Well, to be fair, GTA 5 came out in like 2015.
Sure. 7-10 years. I mean, who's counting? Or 12 years, 13 years.
12 years.
Yeah. My math's still wrong. That's how long it is.
Man, we used to get Grand Theft Auto all the time. Remember that? It was like constant on PS2 era. Whew, it was like every other year a GTA was dropping.
You'd breathe and then another one came out.
It was awesome. Or we had like Manhunt drop, or man, they had Max Payne all over the place. It was crazy back then.
PSP
Bully
ones.
Those days.
Chinatown Wars.
Rockstar was on another planet back then.
We were eating back then. Here's some good news though, John, and maybe not all that surprising. So let's talk about some classic PlayStation IP, huh? Sony is licensing out Hot Shots and Patapon. Very similar to Freedom Wars Remastered, huh? So this was announced during the, I say recent Nintendo Direct. It's the one that's not the Switch 2 one. Right. But these are licensed by Sony Interactive Entertainment to, again, Bandai Namco. So Everybody's Golf Hot Shots, they combine the East and West names into one title there. Coming to PS5, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. And then Patapon 1+2 Replay is coming July 11th this year for PS5, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. Everybody's Golf Hot Shots looks like foundationally, it looks like World Invitational or Everybody's Golf 6, which is basically the Vita release. And then 1+2 Replay. That is a bit weird in that like Sony has already remastered those games for PlayStation 4. That's like outside of like any sort of emulation programs, like they're proper remasters on PS4. But this obviously is like a repackage for new platforms, and it's also got quality of life, like accessibility options in a way where you can change the input timing and also the difficulty on a game by game basis. So, 2 more properties, 2 more.
Yeah, Sony's they're really getting pretty free with the licensing on that. I mean, them and Bandai, it's been them and Bandai, so I'm still curious if another company comes up and plays ball with Sony, but right now Bandai they're ready to roll.
So. Yeah, they're all developed, I think, in-house at Bandai with these ones, because Freedom Wars, they gave that to Dimps.
Right. So I mean, I assume a lot of this stuff was done all at once with the deal, since they're releasing so close to each other with Freedom Wars and I always called it Hot Shots Golf, but I know everybody's golf and what we're seeing with Patapon. So to me, that must have all been one deal that was kind of inked all at once, or multiple deals all at the same time. So maybe there's still another one out there for Bandai, but I kind of want to see someone else get involved too. See what I'm curious because I guess Bandai came to them and said, "Hey, we want these IPs. I assume, can we license these things?" So they must have picked them out. I don't think Sony was like, "Hey, Bandai, do you want these?" So I'm curious.
Do you think that is how it went?
Do you think so? I mean, it's hard to say, but maybe one reached out to the other about 1 or 2 games. And they're like, what about these other ones? And they just kind of went back and forth on it. I am curious who reached out to who first and who chose these games. Because it's interesting that Patapon just shows up and it's like, oh yeah, we're also going to leverage the Switch here. And I had mentioned that I thought Sony would make a push for the Switch too. They haven't yet, but we are starting to see some stuff forming here, I'll say, with Sony Interactive in a direct, technically. I mean, they said Sony right there at the bottom. So they're technically participating indirectly. But this is Bandai just, I guess, licensing, making some moves to the Switch's large install base right now, which is pretty big for something like Patapon. Even Everybody's Hot Shots Golf, that'll, I assume, do well enough there just from numbers alone in terms of how many Switch people they can sell to. I'm curious how much further this partnership goes, though. Yeah,
I'd like to see more. It's the rant I always do. It's, every so often you have these fandoms throughout PlayStation history that will always, shout from the rooftops, we want more Patapon, we want more Everybody's Golf, we want you to do something with all these IP that you own. And it's like, well, logistically, they can't, contract out everybody and bring back all these properties. And you're certainly not going to give these games to in-house teams and tie them up with like another Patapon or something. Like, it's just the world we live in. PlayStation has, that's what they do. They put down properties and move on. And that's in a way what I've always liked about the company. But this to me reads as like a win-win-win scenario. You've got old IP that get to come back and be exposed to a modern audience. Sony gets to do something with them, and they still own them. They're licensing them out. And you've got a publisher like Bandai Namco stepping in, and they're like, hey, we'll be the mediator. We'll handle this for you. We'll, take care of the developing, distribution, and we'll expose it to a new audience, not just like PC and like a PS5 player, for example, because there's also that like generational turnaround. Patapon's like quite old now at this point, to where maybe somebody that owns a PS5 never played Patapon. It's like everybody wins in this case. And it's not, these IP are still relative to what Sony does nowadays. They're really small properties. They wouldn't thrive as exclusives nowadays. That's the environment we're in. It's just one of those harsh realities. If you're going to bring them back, they probably need to be on more platforms, and they kind of have to be offloaded in a way so they're not eating up the resources within Sony.
I think the next obvious one is Gravity Rush.
Gravity Rush should be a great choice. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. You do the collection maybe of like just throw 1 and 2 together and just put it on Switch and see what happens.
Yeah, and that the thing too, that thus far they all appear to be repackaged games. Freedom Wars was a remaster. Patapon 1 and 2, it's a remaster. Everybody's Golf, it would appear as though that's World Invitational. I think it's not entirely clear, because they did say there's like new courses and things that they are doing. And it's like, a golf game, so I'm sure they could just sort of tack on new content to that and use one previous game as a baseline. But everything so far has been repackaged prior titles. So we're still also waiting for maybe an example of like a new entry and maybe an older property. And what do they do with that? I think it's the most viable path for some of these older games that, like, don't get me wrong, I cherish and love them too. I've played all these games when they came out on their original platforms. But if we're talking about how do we bring them back, I think this is probably one of the only ways where it really works.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, the money, yes, the money would work then if you have the largest install size possible, yes. But I mean, this is a partnership or just that's pretty young right now. And I assume it's going to go into the next generation with Nintendo. So that's what I'm curious how serious this gets with Sony, as we've kind of already discussed before. If there's any potential that they start looking at that Switch 2 a bit with maybe something a bit more deep in Sony's catalog right now. That's where I assume we're going to see more of this from Bandai and Sony. But when does Sony, I should say, show up randomly with a Horizon? That's the question.
That seems to be the one that gets picked here, of like they ship Zero Dawn on Switch 2, for example. You think that's a distinct possibility?
We're gonna get to the game pricing. I have to imagine even Sony was like, "Oh, hold on a minute, how much can we get for this game?" Because all of a sudden, 70's a step down. A 60's cheap on the system. I don't know.
So before we move in, because we're getting close to that conversation, we do have other like classic game news that I thought was pertinent as well.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you saw this. Night Dive Studios, they said they're ready. They're ready to take on remastering PS3 and 360 era games.
Let's go.
So one studio that's been a specialist in the remaster and remake of various different projects is Night Dive. Recently, they were speaking with VGC, and Night Dive studio head Stephen Kick and director of business Larry Cooperman. They said that they're ready to look at potential remaster projects for games that only shipped on PS3 and 360. So Cooperman said, and I quote, "I would begin asking a couple of questions. Was it an Xbox 360 exclusive, or was there a PC version out there too? Because that also changes things. The little preservation that's available. Do we have source code? If so, what's the quality of the source code? How about the assets? Those are the kind of considerations that we have to have there. That being said, these were some really good games that came out in that era that shouldn't be lost." Now, regarding PS3 and the console's architecture, Kick said, and I quote, "Yeah, definitely. I think that architecture, I remember the talk when the system was first released of how difficult it was for developers to get it, and that's a big problem with backwards compatibility. So yeah, if we get to that, or I should say when we get to the PS3 era games, it'll be a challenge that we have to face. But I think that we've had enough experience to where we can do a serviceable job on a PS3 remaster. I want to declare right here, right now, in relation to the previous news story, clearly they are okay with this. They're okay with just giving an IP to somebody and letting them whip something up in the kitchen.
So okay. What they got? What are you giving them? What are you giving them, Ryan?
God damn it. If this is an open call from Night Dive, Sony, start sending emails, get somebody over to that studio, do a site visit. I mean, is this not like just an open casting call? Give him Killzone, give him Resistance, give him Motorstorm. Let's do it.
Let's go. Infamous 1 and 2.
I've always maintained this position of like, I'd love a PS3 emulation layer on the console. At a certain point, you have to think like maybe it just makes more goddamn sense to just finance like a handful of ports. I don't know. I mean, there is that other angle, like we know implicit conversions as looking into PS3 emulation. That still would take a long time. It's still an emulation layer, which means you're gonna maybe see the games get a frame rate and resolution boost, which is lovely. But at the same time, it's like we've had so many PS3 360 era remasters. Like a lot of third-party games are available on PS4 and up. Like if we're talking PS3 exclusives, like I think you honestly could just finance the rest of these things. I would at that point I would just take like proper ports. I don't know how I would definitely like be happy with, let's say, a Killzone 2 emulate, like the game is emulated, let's say, and it runs on PlayStation 6 or something. That's great, but like honestly, like just ship it, port it. And you had a bunch of quality of life improvements. I don't know. That's my soapbox. What do you think?
I think we just need to make some of these older games more accessible right now. That PS3 to PS4 split, that's still haunting Sony to this day.
Yeah, it is.
I think it is. I think you're right, though. I think it's worth getting some of these studios that look. This must be. I mean, this is a thing that's going to start coming around now because at the end of this year, the 360 will indeed be 20 years old, which people still have a hard time wrapping their head around that. Which, by the way, means next at the end of 2026. PS3 is 20 years old. The thing plays Blu-rays and has an HDMI port, and it's 20 years old. That's still hard for people to understand because guess what? The PS5 has an HDMI port and plays Blu-rays. So it's like, okay, that's weird. I think we are coming around to that point where some of these companies are like, I mean, it's nostalgic for people. Let's start figuring this out. So I think you're going to have multiples. Night Dive, sure, but like other studios, probably implicit conversions. They say they're researching it. I think in like 2 years, you're just going to see a wave of PS3 and 360 games come back.
I love it. Let's do it.
Sony should get on this yesterday and just start figuring out relationships with some of these companies and start setting things in motion. Absolutely.
I'm with it. You've got a company just sitting here saying we're ready to do it. Let's get it done.
Yep.
Get it done.
Let's go. I'll buy. Hey, you got the Infamous collection. I'm on it. I tried playing it on the PS3. Still works. Kind of crusty. Kind of. I mean, it is. It kind of is. You go back and play.
It's kind of 720p. It's kind of
a little. I mean, that the frame rate gets hit. I know back then we were like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. But it is. Look, I'm going from the PS5 to the PS3. Not all the games are like that. I will say that. I'll give credit. Infamous is one where they definitely used a lot of filters and stuff, and you can kind of see it when you swing the camera around. It's like, oh, okay, it's kind of crunchy. It's kind of crunchy. But that's a game that I think if it got that treatment, could look incredible.
I think it would look very clean with a resolution boost. Yeah,
and ray tracing. I mean, that's a game that obviously would call for ray tracing and stuff. It could look really good.
I'm with it. Now we just have to wait, which is kind of comes with the territory here.
2 years, probably.
John, let's tackle it. We had the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct yesterday, and shockingly, it does have some pretty massive implications here. So just straight up, the thing ends, and Nintendo doesn't drop any numbers. Of course, afterwards, there's site updates, and that's where we learn what they were kind of probably embarrassed to say. But some Nintendo Switch 2 games will be $79.99 USD. So games like Mario Kart World and also the Switch 2 editions of Mario Party Jamboree, Tears of the Kingdom, and Kirby Forgotten Land. And apparently, do we know if this is true? The physical editions in Europe are more expensive than the digital versions. Is that confirmed?
I've seen people mentioning this. As far as I know, because like let's face it, you and I are mostly thinking about the US stuff.
Yeah.
It's $80 across the board in the US, but Europe has some funky pricing going on right now.
I just wanted to like double check, like that really is going on, huh?
It seems to be the case. I thought that was like a typo, but at least at the time of this recording, we are on the podcast now, seems to be about right. But as far as I know as well, like I said, in the US, it's $80 physically, $80 digitally. So that's like parity across the board right now in the US for Mario Kart World. The other ones, though, the enhanced editions, it's like the base game, and then you have like this content pack on top that's like 20. So they just say, oh, it's 80. It looks weird though when you're like, oh, how much is it? Wow, they're $79.99. Okay. I don't think anyone was expecting this. And now they're $10 more than Sony. You know, like the PlayStation 5, like Sony got a lot of backlash. And I will say Nintendo also getting a lot of backlash right now for that price jump from 60 to 70. That was in 2020. We are 4.5 years later, and we're jumping from 70 to 80.
I didn't check this, but I did see somebody say, and it's the inflation argument, but somebody was like, oh, 2020 $70 adjusted for inflation is like already like 80 something within that well, but in that small gap, because I know that the old tried and true conversation is games have never been cheaper when adjusted for inflation, but I'm saying in that small window of 4
inflation
years,
was crazy.
Yeah, well, and then it's true, obviously, because we know what happened within the past 5 years, obviously, printing money like crazy. So, but still, like, there's that aspect to consider. It is nuts, though, because 2020, Sony was one of the first publishers to do it. I think 2K was also one of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the thing is, like, and you're seeing this with Nintendo right now. We are seeing, like, a lot of publishers explore the scale, though. I mean, you remember, like, almost always, doesn't matter what game it was. I think PS3 and below, it was like whatever the set price was at the time. So PS3, it was 60. Everything was 60. PS2, it was 50. Everything was 50. You know, so I mean, nowadays you do see like Split Fiction comes out at 50. You got your Helldivers 2 at 40, Astrobot 60. And so even with these Switch 2 games, like the Donkey Kong 70.
Yep.
But it's just like, not to excuse anything. I'm not trying to play the devil's advocate here because I'm not necessarily excited for this, but you know, you do still see a lot of the price range happening here, but there is a new peak of 80, which has implications for, as you mentioned earlier at the top of the show, what does that really mean for GTA 6? What does that really mean for PlayStation 6?
I mean, I think they're going to, I mean, at least the minimum PS6, they're going to $80. I don't know how they sit around and go like, oh yeah, Nintendo games are worth more than ours. No, like Nintendo games don't cost as much as what Sony Sony puts in sometimes stupid amounts of money for some of these games. Nintendo is, I mean, that's their business, is gaming. I mean, they're branching off into movies and theme park stuff, but like it's at its core mostly gaming. So they can't stand to lose money or miss out on a project when it comes to software or even the hardware. Although I will say the system is $450 starting. That's right where my prediction was. And I think most people are actually okay. I mean, no one's okay with like, oh boy, finally I get to spend $450 on this. No, but like in the world of these PC gaming handhelds that we see at times like overtake $1,000, you go, okay, if you compare it to the Steam Deck, it's like the cheapest one there is $400 with less storage, and it seems to be less capable in terms of the hardware and the screen, and this is $50 more. It's like, okay, that's comparable. That's about right for what the market says. But the games, that's what's kind of sour to everyone on this right now. It's like, wow, not only is World $80, but we are seeing older games also get pushed up to 80. Like, it's not the situation of, oh, here's the free upgrade. Some games did get it, but like for the most part, it's like, no, it's $80 now. It's like, whew, okay. All right. So yes, I think Ryan, Sony's going for, I mean, I can't imagine they wouldn't. And if you're Microsoft, why wouldn't you go for 80? Because it's just going to make Game Pass look better.
It's a lot of money. That's, I mean, yeah, was anybody, nobody was thinking the games were going to jump up to this.
No. I think most people expected 70. We're like, look, it's a new generation. They did it with Tears of the Kingdom.
Right. That Tears of the Kingdom was the thing. Like Tears, it's like, oh, we're still in the Switch 1 generation, and they're here's 70. It's like, oh, we all know it's going to happen with Switch 2. To go another 10 is, I'm very curious as to if anybody really was thinking that would be a possibility.
I didn't see it. I think that's part of it right now is there's a lot of like whiplash from that. Like, whoa, it's $80. How do we get here kind of thing? It's like, that was quick. So that's the tough part. It's, man, games getting really expensive right now. And it's getting harder and harder to recommend a game when it comes out, unless it's like, I mean, it's got to be like top tier, near perfect for a lot of people online to just start recommending. It's not like before where you could recommend a game and it was $60 in 2013, for example, where it's like, it seemed like a bit easier to that $80. I understand what you're saying about inflation. It just looks really expensive despite all of that.
No, I always make that point. Like, it's both of these things can be true, which is games have never been cheaper, which is always like a factual thing. It just is. People hate hearing it. You adjust for inflation, games are still cheaper. That can be true. And it can also be true where it doesn't fucking matter. It's expensive, especially in today's economic environment. Like, is the juice worth the squeeze when cost of living is up, groceries are up? I mean, at a certain point, I wouldn't blame any family to sit here and go like, fuck it, we can't buy video games, or not like we used to. That's what it makes it like worse. To compound that, it's more particular to Nintendo, but like, they're pretty well known and notorious for like not discounting games often at all. So you look at these $80 price points and you go, well, son of a bitch, this isn't even something where I can sit here and wait for this. These goddamn things might stay at 80. Like,
well, here's the good news. Sometimes they do a 30% off sale. And now if you think about that, you're going to get that sales price. Get the sale price is going to be $56.
What a deal. What a deal. So
56.
So here's the thing though, right? When we try to like extrapolate this like industry wide, and let's say we see other games go to 80, like I can't not think about this, but it's like, yeah, we'll go to 80. Let's say a lot of people very clearly don't want to pay 80 for a new game. Makes sense. They still sort of get what they want though, which is that if you don't, because a lot of publishers consider this even in the here and now, which is you might sell a game at 70 when it comes out, but your average selling price might not even be 70 on day one, because they always consider that there's just ways at retail, for example, where you will get the game cheaper. So even when a game's priced at 80, to them, they might even fully acknowledge the average selling price is not going to be 80, but it still will be higher because, as you mentioned, with a discount, the discount gets it to, let's say, as you mentioned, 56, and all of a sudden 56 starts looking very attractive versus 5 years ago where you get the game on sale for 45. They still got more money out of you. So,
and those budget games are $60 instead of $40 or $50. Now it's like, okay, everything moves up a tier basically. And now we're to the point where that budget game is what, I mean, not too long ago, a PS4 and an Xbox One game cost at launch, brand new for the big AAA titles. That was fast. We got here real quick. All of a sudden, we went from why is this game $20 or $70 in 2020 to like, wow, we're at $80 games in 2025. It is crazy how fast this moved.
I'm so curious now, and it'd be a long time still until we like start seeing numbers. But you know how like these Switch games are just it's such a crazy attach rate. It's just a very Nintendo thing. You know, they ship hardware and they ship their first party games, and they're just so synonymous with their hardware, where you see Mario Kart sell 10, then 20, then 30 million. It's always in the top 10, and it just constantly does well. And you start to wonder, God, at $80, do they maintain that?
That is tough because, like, so for example, when these games were $60, you'd walk in with 320s. I mean, like near Delaware, so it's like it's tax-free here. But you get what I'm saying. The idea is, oh, this game is $60. That's three $20 bills. Now it's 80, and you're like, okay, it's another $20 bill. It just feels way more expensive. And because they are so family oriented with their marketing and stuff, it does. If I like right now, I'm thinking, would I buy the kids a Switch 2? No, I would not buy them a Switch 2 right now. You know what I'd get them? I'd get them a Switch Lite. And I'd say, you know what? There's a ton of games out there to play. Go do that. And until you're like, probably honestly, 15, 16, 17, this starts to feel like a more adult system immediately. And it's just doesn't feel like something that's geared towards, honestly, more than half of the Switch audience right now. So until they start to figure out the pricing of not only the system, but their games, I almost wonder if they've priced out a lot of people.
Yeah, I would think. I would think.
Are they now? Here's the real question, Ryan. Are they becoming more and more in competition with Sony all of a sudden?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the thing I always like to say with the competition discussion is like, you could always like make the argument of like they closely compete with Microsoft, and in a somewhat adjacent way they can compete with Nintendo. But oftentimes you hear this sort of example where like Switch is a very complementary device. Sometimes you see on average like a household will have a PlayStation and a Switch. But on a broader scale, Sony considers anything competition if it keeps your time off PlayStation. So if Switch starts to really eat into people's time, and that leads into Switch 2 and potentially all these third-party games, which now Nintendo's never been in I would argue, a stronger position as far as third-party goes. It's much different from 2017. I mean, this Direct I thought was very clear as far as like, yeah, we've got some first-party stuff as always, but Elden Ring, FF7 Remake,
Cyberpunk's in there.
Cyberpunk, a FromSoft game. We'll talk about that in a second, but it's like, maybe they are sort of gunning for more time away from people's portable PCs, Steam Decks, and your PlayStations.
If you had to explain to a person what the difference was between the PlayStation 5 and the Switch 2, when they're both 4K, they're both 120 frames per second, they both have HDR, like what difference would you explain to them?
That's a good point. Yeah, you would just make the argument that one's like a high-end console.
More powerful, right? But they'd be like, okay, well, how is it more high end? Because they both do 4K. Like they'll start I've seen this with like the customers that just come into a store, don't really follow as much. What's the difference? Well, one's 4K or they're both 4K. I mean, the lighting's better in this one, and they're like, okay, but is it like that different? And you're like, well, not as much. It has the best thing you say is it has Blu-ray, and they're like, well, we're kind of all streaming now, so and it's I think that's what I mean though, like the high-end box argument was really good against the current Switch. It's starting to become less and less of a thing with the Switch 2, it feels like, just from what they showed us.
I think the differences would start to really be more apparent with those third-party titles, and that like, so that FromSoft game was like, it looked pretty jaggy. It was like 1080p. That trailer was very clearly, you prop that up to like an Elden Ring running on a PlayStation 5. And I think the difference becomes quite clear. It's like easy to sort of say, as you're proposing it, the on paper spec sheet of like, it can do 4K. Yeah. And certain circumstances, whereas the vast majority of PlayStation 5 games are indeed 4K, either a near 4K image quality reconstruction. It's also ray tracing. I know that's not necessarily the biggest selling point out there, but I don't know. It's like one of those Digital Foundry things. I think once you have these guys start pitting all these Switch 2 versions against the console versions, it'll be pretty distinct in that this thing is punching above its weight. These games look great on it, don't get me wrong, but it's like there's still very clearly that differential as far as performance goes.
Sure. It's just that it's kind of that mainstream sense of they read the marketing material and they're trying to figure out like what's so different between them. And that's one of the reasons that, and of course the games, that we don't always see the most powerful system win out, we'll say, in a generation. And it's been true since like way back in the day, before 3D gaming even. So it's I don't know, it's just interesting the way that Sony might start looking at Nintendo differently, which technically plays against my prediction of Horizon showing up on the Switch too. But maybe it's too late. They've already figured it all out. It's going to the Switch 2. But that's something I thought about. Like maybe they really are starting to see Nintendo as this is a little more serious than we were thinking. Or if they do a handheld, it is competition to them,
Right. I mean, if we expect that they are working on this SoC that's going to power a portable PlayStation, and by the time they ship one, it's going to conceivably be, better than the on-paper specs that this thing has. Maybe it's in their interest to maybe not ship on Switch anymore. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's all speculative in the sense that like everything they've put on Nintendo so far, are older properties that aren't even like visually sort of these outstanding looking big AAA games. Your Patapon and even Lego Horizon is a pretty looking game, but it's not like not the actual Horizon hyper realistic visuals.
Right.
And that might be the shtick that Sony wants to continue protecting. They want those boutique, beautiful AAA epics to only be on their machine, and then we'll do a PC release maybe a year or two after, but we'll not put those on Switch.
Even the pricing, we're talking about $80 Switch 2 games, that has that weird effect. I've seen it with customers as well, where they try to figure out like this game must be better because it's $10 more. I've seen that, like they're trying to like figure it out in their mind. Like, well, I guess this is better because it's more expensive, right? I've seen that happen. So I know it sounds weird, but that's because we know, and we follow stuff very closely. You would be impressed as to some of the stuff that like the mom or dad or whoever, when they come into the store and they're trying to put it in together in their mind, like looking at this, not really understanding the reasoning that they'll use to figure out why the sticker prices are what they are. Compare it's really funny. But that would be one at times back in the day, was like, this one's more, so it must be better.
the mental gymnastics you have to play to
I'm telling you, it happens a lot. So I'm kind of trying in my mind to figure out how like the mainstream consumer is going to view the Switch 2 next to the PS5. And I assume Sony is going to be focus group testing and asking and surveying this themselves to figure out where the PS5 and the Switch 2 are in relation to each other and how we should be viewing them going forward.
True. Yeah. I mean, when you look at like the price tag of this thing, $450, you're in the PlayStation 5 ballpark. And this thing does this thing has the utility of, it's TV and portable. If that's what you're looking for, this thing might be really great device for you. Do we know the pricing of those games in Japan? Because that's, this gets into another part of the conversation, which is
it's cheaper in Japan.
The games too. So Switch 2 hardware adjusted for the exchange rate is like $300 and $30 or something?
There's something going on here that's very interesting. So I think Nintendo realizes that they cannot sell a Switch 2 at that price in Japan, and Japan is incredibly important to them in that market because basically they own that market. Mm-hmm. So what they've done is they've region locked a Switch 2 specifically for Japan. It's only in like the Japanese language. It only plays Japan region Switch 2 games, and it's like $330 when you adjust for adjust for an exchange rate. They have a multi-language one that's 20,000 more yen. So it puts it in parity with the Switch 2 that everyone else is pretty much getting. And you could technically buy that, I believe, in Japan, but if you're native to Japan and you have no problem with being regionalized, you're just going to buy the cheaper one. So they're trying to navigate that, but I think I know what you were getting into. The games, by the way, also I think are, instead of 80, are 65 there.
Also, I'm curious if it was strictly a hardware thing, or if it was the games too that would be cheaper in Japan, because the games are manufactured in Japan too.
Yep.
So the games are manufactured in Japan, but I mean, we'd be remiss to not mention, like, there's, at least for the U.S. administration, it's the tariffs. Which, what's funny is that coming out of GDC, we had heard this from Christopher Dring with his new site, that the talk around GDC is that there actually wasn't nearly as much concern about tariffs right now relating to just, hardware and even physical games, because they're using like a lot of local firms for securing that stuff. What I've always said about Sony is that they have a plant in Terre Haute, Indiana, that fulfills PS5 discs, but I think they still get the discs from Mexico. But either way, I mean, this gets into so many different regions, because we just had this report today that there is going to be is it 46% from Vietnam? And then
It is, yes, those are the reciprocal tariffs that are in place now.
So, and that's the thing, is that Nintendo switched production to Vietnam and Cambodia. And so,
Yep.
so out of GDC, Chris was saying that the platform holders were actually, obviously they were well aware of like the new administration coming in. So they wanted to sort of they want to start sourcing production lines outside of China. And it seems like Sony had already started doing that. And also we had that story that they were like stockpiling consoles here just so that they're here before tariffs kick in, whatever the case is. But I mean, it seems pretty apparent that this isn't quite over just yet, and perhaps Nintendo is also sort of getting ahead of what might be, an issue here as far as shipping games over, well, hardware and consoles over to the US.
I think the thing that's interesting about this is I see a lot of the articles pop up right now that immediately go, okay, the Switch too, because of the tariffs, it's going to be $600 now, or so they're doing the quick math. Oh, this is the percentage. This is how much it costs. We're just going to go ahead and tack that on. I don't think it's going to be as straightforward as that. And it's funny, because I thought about this a bit, and it's one of those things where you just say it in your mind, like, it's not going to happen. And it kind of did. The place they would make the money up is in the software, like the games,
right,
and the subscription services, and even the accessories, if they can source those more locally and stuff. And I mean, the accessories for the Switch 2 also have, like, I think the Switch 2 might be a good, like, first impression on what we could see from some of the tariffs and how that would affect a lot of these imports and goods and stuff and electronics. But the accessories are more expensive for the Switch 2. I think the Pro controller is $80. A pair of Joy-Cons is $90.
Yeah, 90 for Joy-Cons. I saw that too.
I mean, the Joy-Cons now for the Switch
are
are 80,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's $10 more. But like, you see what I mean? It's, man, again, the price is going up with this stuff. But the software, now that we're hearing about this, it's like, did Nintendo go, okay, we would have been 70, but let's go to 80 so we could start trying to make this up just in case. Because let's say they do sell 10 million copies of Mario Kart in the first year or something like that, which probably is lowballing it. It'll probably be more because it's Mario Kart and it sells incredibly well. But that extra 10, it's $100 million. Like, that can get them there. So that's kind of what I see a lot of discussion right now is the hardware is not necessarily going to be the thing that balloons like crazy. They could adjust pricing on the fly if they have to, because they're not going to lose money on this stuff that much. But they'll look for other ways to make it up because they want to get you the system as cheap as they can, because that opens you up to everything else.
Well, it doesn't arguably seem like a lot of the pricing that we have in the here and now is already sort of built in and insulating from whatever sort of additional percentages are maybe expected out of this stuff. Because that's the sort of shock we're seeing. Maybe it's already sort of factored in to a degree. And as you make a great point, it's software. Although Nintendo historically, they like to make a profit on hardware as well. They like to do that right out of the gate. It wasn't I mean, I think a lot of people were expecting, oh, maybe this thing was 400. Then it started to feel like, maybe another $50. So like, I
came to the 450 determination before this shit. Like, I did the predictions. I was like, it's 450. And I said June 6th, but they had to trick me and launch on a Thursday. I assume they saw the predictions video and they said, nope, we're not having that. He's not going to get 450 and June 6th right. We're launching it a day early. So you're welcome. Everyone out there, I got the Switch 2 launch a day early. All right. There's no other explanation for it. That's got to be it.
You should have went the other direction, probably.
Yeah.
No, but they do want to, if they could, they would want to offer products as affordable as they could. I mean, realistically, I don't think they necessarily want these things to be as expensive as they are. There is a tipping point. I mean, obviously products do go up over time, but there is that tipping point where it starts to impede on how many more you would have sold at a lesser price point.
Well, think about it this way, Ryan. It's an exciting marketing opportunity when you get to lower the price, because everyone's excited and it's a big thing and you can do commercials and everything. You are very quiet when you raise the price. You are like, press release at 2 a.m. and like the whole thing, right? So it's a chance that Nintendo overshot it a little bit here. It's $500 if you get the Mario Kart World bundle, which, oh, interesting, $30 less if you get the bundle. That's odd. So yeah, for the game. So it does make you do that math and you're like, oh wow, that's a pretty good deal. It's like, is it really that good of a deal? They've kind of made you think it is. So I think, hey, you know what? Here's the silver lining. This is probably a generation where we actually see the price go down over time. Hopefully, like there is a price drop eventually someday. We're not used to that.
This guy's crazy. Somebody check his pulse.
Let's say we get 3 years in and tariffs start to move around or go down or whatever. And then it's like, oh, we can have a marketing opportunity to lower the price now. We're going to go to $3.99. There you go.
Or let's say that they're actually doing just fine. These things sell like hotcakes and all of a sudden tariffs go away and now their margins look really damn good at the rate that they're going.
Here's the issue they run into though, Nintendo specifically. They don't have a secondary system anymore. This is their one system. They used to have like the cheap handheld and then their console. So if things go poorly for the Wii U, don't worry. The 3DS is rolling along at a more affordable rate. Is $450 that affordable out of the gate? I don't think it is. I don't think it will be 2-3 years from now either. So they got to get cheaper and they got to figure that out soon. And I think it's more maybe a new model. I don't know.
You say that, but we just went a whole cycle with Switch not dropping the price at all.
But it was always
2017.
But you mentioned the stuff around them, like the inflation happening. The Switch kind of got cheaper just by now we look at them like, wow, the thing is really just $300, or the thing is like $350 or whatever. People look at that more as like, wow, there's an OLED screen too at $350. Like it's that sense of everything moved up around it, and they just tried to hold firm. And now the $200 Switch Lite, I mean, that thing looks dirt cheap right now for a lot of people. They're like, wow, I'll go get that.
It's a shame to say, but you're not wrong.
Everything around it just moved up and it just got cheaper by standing there. So I think the Switch 2 is going to do well at launch. I'm kind of curious to see if it loses steam maybe sooner than Nintendo was. Remember, this isn't the first time Nintendo launched with a kind of expensive. The 3DS launched expensive.
Yeah.
They had to drop the price. Like it was like kind of like an emergency thing.
Indeed it was. You'd think it would do well, but I'm not entirely convinced this thing is going to have, the sort of numbers that the original Switch had.
Oh no, not after seeing all this. I don't see any way it's gonna have. I think the game prices are. I think they're legitimately putting people off. They're like, oh, that'd be cool to get it, but man, I was doing some of the math and I'm like, you know what? To get in on this, because I'd want the Pro Controller. That's just usually how I play the games and stuff. I'd want obviously the game, some of the games and that kind of thing. And it's like, wow, just the system, the Pro Controller, Mario Kart, and we'll say Donkey Kong, the follow-up release, right? I'm getting close to $700 here.
You're not going to get that Pixar-looking camera lamp that you put on front of your TVs?
I don't want the camera. I mean, look, here's the thing. Just for me in general, for what I'm doing on the channel and stuff. Yes, I'll get it. Like all that stuff. I'm getting all the stuff but I'm going to cover it for like my job, basically. Doing all the stuff.
Sure.
If I was just out there buying it, I would think, because I have some friends that I talk to that are mostly not into it for a YouTube channel, because you and I, Ryan, will talk about this stuff and we're like, well, yeah, we're getting that. Like we're already like planning it out for videos. But these are people who are just like, do I want to get this and play it after work? That kind of thing, right? They're a little like, they're not as excited as you'd think when they saw some of this game price, and they're like, whoa, that's not what we were thinking when we thought of Nintendo.
So Grand Theft Auto 5, what do we think? I mean, is it
six Grand Theft Auto 6, right?
Six.
Okay.
What are we thinking?
It's $80 to start. Let's just start there, because I don't think there's any way they're looking at this and being like, oh yeah, Mario Kart's worth more than GTA 6. Absolutely.
Well, they have enough time to like not like open pre-orders, let Switch 2 come out. And you know what I mean? Like they have enough, there actually is a small window, I think, conceivably, that they can kind of sit back and sort of analyze a new console launch with with that price tag and see what happens before they decide.
Well, it's gonna be kind of skewed because Mario Kart's gonna come with the system, so Nintendo could, after a week, be like,
"Oh, obfuscate
hey,
numbers.
so many million Mario Karts sold or something." And it's like, well, okay, cool, $100 GTA 6.
You're not wrong. I'm sure they'd obfuscate it to a degree, but
yeah,
they could probably secure some kind of information to at least gauge some sort of market research to give them an idea.
You're interesting though, Ryan. You know what else I noticed? You mentioned earlier that NBA 2K was the first in line when Sony moved to 70. They were right there with it. They're like, oh, yep, we didn't want to do it, but man, all the marketing materials were already ready. So there you go, $70.
Oh boy.
You don't think NBA is going to be like, you know what? We didn't want to move to 80, but Nintendo's kind of forced our hand. It's NBA 2K's $80. I don't know what to tell you. So I feel like that might be an interesting one to follow there, because it's going to be so weird if they do that. And it's like, it's 80 on the Switch too, but it's 70 on the other systems. I think GTA 6 is starting at $80.
You think it's going to be 80, huh?
I think it's starting there. And then I think it could be more, but
the crazy thing is, like, the one video game that has absolutely zero issue being priced at 80 is going to be that one. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
You'll see people bitch, but at the same time, they're there and they'll get that game.
Mm-hmm. I think people are doing that with the Switch too, but people are going to buy Mario Kart and all that's going to happen anyway. But it is that sense of just becoming more aware of, like, wow, things around us really are getting that much more expensive. And it still sneaks up on you. Eggs have been stupid expensive the whole time, and I still go, man, when I go to the store, like, gosh, this thing is $8 for these eggs. You still do it.
Well, now you can sort of, dance your way, like, mentally into that conversation of, like, well, if I don't get eggs this week, that covers the percentage difference on Mario Kart World. It covers the percentage difference on the Kirby Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 edition. So I don't need eggs this week.
I can't eat the Mario Kart. The cartridge doesn't even taste good. Have you tasted a Switch cartridge?
What kind of coating thing? What flavor do we got for this?
Well, the game cards are red. Somebody suggested in the chat when I did the live stream it be a spicy.
Yeah, apple cinnamon, something like that. Really spicy.
Apple cinnamon, like fire ants,
or that red cinnamon gum where you taste it and you're like, this isn't cinnamon. This is just fire.
Yep.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
Cool.
It's got to bring some pain. Yeah, it's got to hurt.
Oh, shit.
I mean, look, here's the thing: we are going to see some Cyberpunk 2077. They are using a 64 gigabyte cartridge. I'll give them that. They are going to do it, which is that's not a cheap cart to use. And so in that case, I assume they're going, hey, this thing's $80, but we're using a legit cartridge. So I don't know. There's no download then. There's no install. You just pop the cartridge in and you go. It's like, okay, well, you're at that point, you're appealing to the collectors out there, I guess. So,
well, there's a lot to be said about how they're handling physical copies. There's no doubt about that. That's
a physical copy, you say?
Well, that's definitely more Nintendo news at that point. But
are you saying you're doing a video on this?
I might talk about it. We'll see how I'm feeling after this, but let's at least talk about this. So, like, the other big direct announcement from Software announced the Dusk Bloods on Nintendo Switch 2, an exclusive, which was shocking. I will say right now, because of course I have no pressure to, like, film anything about the Switch 2 Direct, or at least not immediately. So I wasn't, like, filming my reactions or anything like that. But
filming right now.
But when I was sitting there watching it, yeah, and it said exclusive, I was like, I was audibly like, holy fuck. Oh, no way. That's insane. So it's described as a PvPe experience coming 2026, directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki. Looks very similar to Bloodborne. Some people are making those comparisons. And as a reminder, Sony owns a 10% stake in Kadokawa, and which is From Software's parent company, and they own 14% in From Software. So I'm not sure what involved. So Sony coming in, probably collecting some of that money.
Oh yeah. Hey, I mean it's business there. I mean, this has been in the works for a little while. Obviously, it's coming out next year.
Yeah. And it seems like it's not like a mainline sort of FromSoft thing. It's like another multiplayer game, but still, I mean, like you watch that trailer, you can't help but think, damn, this looks almost like a spiritual successor to Bloodborne. It looks a
Yeah,
little
it
bit.
does.
It looks a little more steampunk though.
Mhm.
That makes yeah.
People in the chat were immediately like, they got Bloodborne 2. I'm like, no, they don't have Bloodborne 2, but they were showing. I'm like, it does kind of have that aesthetic of it right now when they were showing it. And FromSoft came up, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. What a partnership for Nintendo to get that though. I was shocked. I was, but hey, FromSoft, everybody wants FromSoft right now. They can't miss.
That's what's if anything, that's what's so shocking, because I think any sort of exclusive that FromSoft does now is kind of like would be a mind-blowing thing, because it's like after this is post Elden Ring. So it's like if Sony got another exclusive, shit would hit the fan and people would be like mad about it. But in a way, it's like aligning this with a new console. It's a very sort of weird, and Nintendo of all companies, it's like, oh, that was kind of nutty.
Well, if you're FromSoft, you're probably thinking about being able to expand your reach further with an audience for Nintendo. And I mean, Elden Ring was there as well. So you see that, you see this pop up. It's like, yeah, they've dabbled with the Switch a bit, and Nintendo, they had like Dark Souls and stuff on there, but never like Elden Ring and a brand new game exclusive. Probably I'll say within a year of launch. We'll see if it's first half of next year, but like close enough to where there's still that hype going on, honeymoon period almost for it. And they go, whoa, cool, new FromSoft game. Some people might just buy the system for the FromSoft game, like just outright. Especially if it's good.
Right. I agree. So do we know if this is the kind of publishing agreement where like I don't want to say it would never leave Switch 2, but like surely this can't be like a locked down game, because that's the issue with like Demon's Souls and Bloodborne. Sony owns the properties, so that's why it's like I think everybody was watching this trailer just fully convinced, like, oh, cool, they got the debut for this game. It's not a Switch 2 exclusive, and then you see that and you're like, whoa.
Sometimes I'm not sure, because occasionally you'll have these deals happen and the game doesn't leave Nintendo. So
like Bayonetta, Bayonetta 3, right?
Well, that's one, but one example I'm thinking of that I still cannot believe isn't on any other platform, like nothing, is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3.
Oh.
Right. I was positive, like, you know what? Eventually it'll go to another platform. It's not great on the Switch. It has frame rate issues, the resolution, it's a whole thing, right? Especially when you get a bunch of people on screen. In my mind, I'm like, you know what? A year or two. It's Marvel. It'll be on another platform. It's still not. Nope.
When'd that come out?
Long time ago. That was revealed, I think, the first year of the system.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, because I'm wondering, like, time wise, if there's some sort, because like we'll see like 5+ year agreements,
Yeah, that's been on there for 6 or 7 years now. It's something crazy. But like stuff like that will randomly. I don't know if Daemon X Machina, did that go to other platforms?
I couldn't tell you.
I know it went to PC. I feel like, no, that's still on Switch as well. Never went to another platform other than Windows or PC, but like none other console. So like occasionally it'll happen. I don't know if this is one of those situations, but I will tell you, when they say things like exclusive to Switch or exclusive Switch 2, that's how they presented Ultimate Alliance 3. It was like boom, 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 exclusive to Nintendo Switch. And it's never left. So I kind of feel like this is never going to leave.
You think
the way they presented it.
You think they really locked it down? That'd be kind of insane. Not even just insane in that Nintendo did it. I would be kind of surprised that From would agree to it.
Or maybe Sony just wasn't privy to it, but it is kind of weird that Sony wasn't like, no, we'll outbid them for the PS5.
Well, yeah, like take it, like I guess acknowledging the whole, like you're doing this, but not Bloodborne. It's like, I think Sony would want more Bloodborne, but they must not have been privy to this, and it was probably something as far as like resources. Like Hidetaka Miyazaki can only direct how many video games at a time. So I mean, if he's doing this, like he's got other Elden Ring stuff going on, like that's it. There's no room to get in there for another Bloodborne. I think they would want to do it if that's the core issue of why we never have more Bloodborne, is that they've just not been freed up.
I mean, Nintendo could have just said, "Hey, we'll fund the whole thing."
Yeah, I mean, they could have very well like just threw boatloads of money at them.
Yep. I mean, everybody wants a piece of FromSoft right now, so they're like the most popular. I have to assume behind the scenes they're one of the most popular studios try to get involved with.
Well, I guess if you're Sony, it was a smart play to just say, you know what, we'll just own you.
Yeah.
Own a small piece of you.
That's I think FromSoft's just going to get more and more valuable as we go along.
So speaking of deals, the other like pretty surprising thing as far as PlayStation goes is that remake FF7 remake integrate is finally leaving PlayStation consoles. Nintendo Switch 2. I think that was like inevitable, but it was still kind of surprising because we never knew the conditions of like how long the game was locked down. 7 remake, when it was announced, it was at the time, it was given a year. And that year comes and goes, and you have integrate and PC. But it's like beyond that, we had no idea how long it would take for like another console. So still no Xbox. But
yeah, I feel like Microsoft's going to announce that on their terms. I think Rebirth, Nate had said Rebirth would follow up the year after on other platforms. So I think now that we've seen this get announced, that kind of the clock has started. So I assume Integrate's this year. It's going to come out maybe later on this year, and then Rebirth probably follow next year. And then, I mean, hey, for Sony, they're going to get the finale to the trilogy, which I mean, honestly, if you play these 2 games on other platforms, I mean, you see that ending for Rebirth. I don't know how long you wait. You know, you're going to get spoiled or something's going to happen. I feel like you try to make the move and get that third one as soon as possible, maybe even just on the PS5.
I know we're really reaching here, but how do you think Rebirth is going to look on the Switch too?
That's interesting because I mean, Integrate should look good.
I mean, but I mean, Rebirth in particular, we're talking about like, oh, maybe this is not a game you play on base consoles.
Yeah, that's that's going to be interesting. Right? It's going to come down to NVIDIA, and that's the thing though. This chip that's in this system, it's so hard to say what its capabilities are with NVIDIA, because it's hard enough to compare AMD and NVIDIA most times with the different technologies they use. But if this is using like legit DLSS in docked mode, I mean, it could be pretty impressive, like to the point where it's a little surprising. Now, there's still drawbacks to DLSS and stuff, obviously, and we don't know what version it's running, but it just feels so unknown right now. It might be better than what people are expecting. Not like it's not gonna be PS5 Pro or something like that, but you know, for a handheld in a dock, it might do, I think, punch well above its weight. I think it'll be actually kind of a clean image, as weird as that sounds.
I mean, well, it's good. I mean, that would be the concern with Rebirth in particular. Yeah. Maybe just like as far as like sight lines go and the density of foliage. And you might see a pretty big pullback there.
I'll draw back on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the damn thing is, now that I'm like finally playing Rebirth, the one thing that like kind of bothers me, and I'm on Pro, mind you, is like so much popping.
Yeah, there's a lot of popping. The ground and stuff.
Everything's pop. Yeah, I'm like on Pro. I'm like, oh, this kind of. And I tried all modes. I'm like, there's no way to eliminate this.
Yeah. It's noticeable when you're running really fast and you're looking at the ground and like the flowers 10 feet in front of you or just appear.
The fucking grass is always growing in this game. It's throwing me off, dude. I can't. There's one thing I'm like bummed out about. Like I'm almost never a sort of like I appreciate beautiful looking games, but I don't like being snotty about it. I mean, I'm the guy that, oh my God, I'll play a 30 FPS game. God forbid. I know it's sacrilege. But like that
disgusting.
That pop in it's kind of bothering me on Rebirth. I'm like, dude, this ground is just it's constantly growing.
It's more noticeable, like if the foliage was even just like 2D junk looking stuff, but it wasn't popping in constantly, it would be less noticeable because you're going really fast.
Yeah.
But if it's there and it's far off in the sight line, you wouldn't really notice as much. But when it just appears, just like, oh, like it catches that out of the corner of your eye, you know.
Well, there we go. That's I think that's most of the really pertinent Switch 2 items.
Interesting times.
Definitely some implications for the wider business here. We'll see what Sony may or may not do with the pricing of their own games.
Let me ask you this, Ryan. Right here, right now, April of 2000. $25. Does Sony move to $80 mid-generation for the PS5?
It would have to be a game that's kind of in the same context of Tears of the Kingdom. I think if they do it this cycle, it's like that big game where people are like, oh, well, yep, I'll pay it. And I don't know if they'll have one. I don't know if Intergalactic commands that.
2027 Intergalactic, $80.
I don't know if that commands it. I guess it would depend on if we see more of it. Maybe we see more of that game and it looks just mind-blowing. I don't know. But I would be inclined to say, based on the games we're expecting, that maybe they won't really have that excuse. Maybe it's not there. Maybe it's there for PS6.
Okay.
I could be wrong though. Could be always wrong. In other multi-platform news, I feel like we have to mention this wild Indiana Jones trailer, that release date trailer, which is coming out April 17th. That was just a cool nod. I think they really played into like the audience there, because the PS5 release date they confirmed April 17th, but basically they had Nolan North and Troy Baker like talking to each other about the game and it coming out, because Nolan North obviously is representing Nathan Drake, and then Troy plays Indiana in the game, but like Troy's actually in a bunch of PlayStation games himself. So there's a really funny release date trailer. So that game's coming out.
Good game for people who have not played it.
Very soon. Yep. And the other Xbox news here is that Halo collection that we're hearing about. The rumor is that it might not be the full lineup. Recently, speaking on the Xbox 2 podcast, Tom Warren from The Verge mentioned that when Microsoft begins shipping Halo on new consoles, it might not be the full collection. That's what he said. He said that he doesn't think it's going to be every game, which, for reference, the Master Chief Collection has Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, 4, and Reach on there, but ODST and Reach came after the fact. And then PC, I think that version was kind of similar in that it was like a rolling basis, like the new Halo game coming out on it. So Tom's just saying like he kind of expects that maybe that's going to happen when it comes out on like PlayStation, for example. I don't really know. I don't know what the expectation was, if we were thinking like just the full blown complete Master Chief Collection was going to ship on PS5, or if it would be maybe more piecemeal. I think this is more a question for you, how you expect that they'll do this.
That is how they did it for PC. I was kind of expecting it would just, because it's done across the board on like PC and Xbox. And I kind of figured it would just, here's the full collection, boom, day one. But in a way, in their mind, they might think, hey, if we release it, not one at a time, but a few at a time, it does keep the conversation interest going here. My thing with that is, if you have Master Chief Collection now, you can choose which games to install and which ones not to change your file size. So it's like already all built in that they can just drop games in as they go, just enable them and the files are there with an update. So they could go that route of, we're going to have the Master Chief Collection hub be downloadable, but these games are grayed out. These ones are here now. The other ones will come in rolling updates. So maybe they'll just start people with 1 and 2 for a month or so, and then the next ones come, and it's like a way to get people to play them in order, kind of. I don't know. I'd prefer them to just do it all at once. Here's Master Chief Collection. There you go. And that way we do get a physical version of the game that's not that weird thing of 20 gigabytes on the disc and you download everything else. It's like,
John, here's the issue, John, and it's a big issue. You're
gonna say trophies.
Shut up. If you do one executable on the console, that means they can only give Halo 1 Platinum across, what is that, 6 games? No, we're not doing that. So they have to, at the very minimum, make sure that each game is a separate executable, or at least.
So you like this idea?
No, well, listen, or at least do what Konami did with the Metal Gear Collection, where when you insert the disc, it is one disc, but the icons are separate installable applications.
You like the idea of them all being separate icons, though?
Well, that's just me going off on a trophy tangent. As for like the actual news, I guess this makes sense to me because, you only get to do this once. You only get to release Halo on PlayStation once.
Right.
This is the first time you do it. Maybe you don't put all of them on there right away. Maybe you do here's 1 and everybody gets to play 1 at their own pace. Here's 2. Everybody, yeah. Do you really put 6 games on there immediately, and then the after a month, it's like the sort of novelty of it's over? There's only one time you can do this. So at first, I kind of like was with you. I'm like, yeah, why would it not be the whole thing? Now I think maybe it makes sense to roll it out.
Okay, so Ryan, PlayStation guy over here, is content with his PlayStation home screen having Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, Halo Reach, ODST, all right there, taking up the entirety of his PlayStation dashboard.
Well, that would be assuming I install them all and play them all, and they're all the only thing I'm playing on the console.
It's Halo, of course. That's what you're gonna do.
You really?
Everyone should be doing that.
You think so? Well, I know you would advocate for that.
Yeah. It's Halo on PlayStation. It's historic.
Well, that's my point, though. Is that do you really put all of them on there right away? I don't know. Maybe
you line all those up, Ryan. You take a picture and you put it on Twitter X. That would go crazy for you.
I don't give a shit. People are gonna do that. Oh my god! Look what's happening. What a world we live in. It's over. I saw this shit with like MLB on Xbox. It's over. Come on. The novelty's over.
I don't know. Master Chief on that PlayStation.
Yes, that'll be a big one. That'll be a big one. But you already know people are like just foaming at the mouth at the clout they're gonna get when they put up that picture. There's probably people that are only gonna buy that fucking game just so they can put that tweet out.
I'm doing it. I'll take the picture. And I can say something. I'll be like, get on the sticks. We'll see what happens.
You just want easy kills. You're just looking to up your KD.
Oh, I'm absolutely taking advantage of that PlayStation community. That game, I'm sorry, I am.
You're about hey, you might catch some hands. You don't know. You don't know. You got people out here that got history with SOCOM, Killzone. They've got.
Oh, dude, this way Halo's been different than that.
Well, but they've been around the block, is what I'm saying. Maybe that heavy Killzone 2 feel will somehow translate to Halo.
I don't fear the Killzone people.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't.
Microsoft actually brought the remastered games over.
Oh shit. Okay, well, how about this? I don't know how closely you've been following this AI thing on the AI slop on PSN. It's getting crazy out here. This game popped up, Flight Simulator 2025. I think it's actually been on this. Did you
Flight
see
Simulator
this?
2025? No, I didn't see that.
Okay, so Flight Simulator 2025 showed up on PSN. The fucking thing looks just like Microsoft's game, but you look a little bit closely, John, and it's the old AI trick of the longer you stare at that picture, the longer the longer the key art just doesn't really add up.
Is it still up?
It might be down. It might be down. If you can't find, I got to show you it if you haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I see Flight Simulator Delivery 2025 VR.
That's not it. That's not it. Oh,
what is this? What is this thing? Hold on. This came out. When did this come out?
They might have taken it down. It might be down already.
This thing was terrible. Whatever this is.
I wish I could show you. I mean,
it's $15 and it has a 1.5 star rating.
It might be down because I can't find the link anymore. But the point is, this game showed up on PSN. It was one of my stories for LTPS, so I did publicize it. Maybe that helped. I certainly hope so. It looked just like MS Flight Simulator. So people like saw this on like Gaming Leaks and Rumors and PSN profiles, and people thought like, oh, there it is. And then people were like, no, like look at the developer. Like it's Grizzly Games Limited, which is not to be confused with another studio actually called Grizzly Games. They developed Thronefall. So Eurogamer reached out to Grizzly Games and they're like, hey, did you know about this? And they're like, no. And they had to like, obviously they put out a quote here. What they say? I got it right here. We're not associated with Grizzly Games Limited, and they're using both our name and logo illegally, which they were. So furthermore, they seem to incorporate the absolute opposite of our values of what we stand for and what we're trying to give to the gaming community. Unfortunately, our legal resources are limited as a 2-person indie team, but honestly, I'd love to see this kind of stuff being stopped, especially since it's not only happening to us, but lots of indie devs that just lack the legal power. I do know you covered the one story about that one studio, or it was an indie dev, right? And their game was like straight up stolen. Like the game
got stolen. Yep,
Okay.
and they're like, it's so weird. It's this weird rabbit hole where they like have shell companies and
Yeah.
it's crazy.
This studio had like a website with a bunch of AI looking games. All the links were dead, but one of them clicked over to a YouTube channel where it was like this management sim, this like shopping sim. Looked like garbage, obviously, but they stole the grizzly bear logo.
That's
And
crazy.
this flight simulator game, it, like the key art that you know what I'm talking about, right? For MS Simulator, the blue sky and the plane looked just like it. But if you stared at it long enough, you're like, oh, there's a very synthetic looking plane here. These lines aren't quite matching up the way they should be. It's getting crazy out there. And it's like worse on the eShop, if anything. But like PSN has plenty of it. I mean, Jesus Christ, what do we do here?
Yeah, this is getting tough because I think this is only going to accelerate, which we talked about before, but this isn't going to slow down unless they literally just like completely bottle it up and they're like, nope, if there's any sign of AI stuff and you have to tell us, it's not going on there.
What do you think the answer is here? Because I feel like it's maybe not as black and white. Like, do you start rejecting the games? Do you input like a manual human review process for every game, and that's a lot of resources? Do you just do an AI disclosure, and if like a developer doesn't disclose AI use, then their games are blacklisted? Like, how do you think they should approach this?
You know what the answer is, right? We gotta fight fire with fire. They're gonna use AI to beat it. AI to review the AI games. As sad as that sounds, that's probably what's gonna happen. Machine learning and stuff.
Kind of world do we live in?
Hey, it's gonna be AI versus AI. That's how it's gonna work out. It's gonna be the future.
My thing is, if you try and automate it, you're gonna get like games that are rejected that should not have been.
That's true. You will. And then I assume that'd be an appeal process, and then a human would look at it.
Maybe, but I think you and I both know well that this is going to turn into one studio that is going to, shout out about how they were, denied. And then it makes all these headlines that PlayStation's denying this studio. And, it's bad press that the company wants to not deal with. So, but I mean, I just, on the basis of like, do you agree that maybe they should just say no to certain games like these in particular?
I mean, yeah, because it actually starts making your storefront look, unappealing. Also, just low quality. Like, wasn't the idea for Sony, for example, trying to present like this more, I guess you'd say upscale, like higher quality image with the high end, enthusiast box and that Sony logo and name and image and stuff. It seems weird when you do all that, and then it's like, here's Flight Simulator 2025 with like a 600p like JPEG that's stretched over the banner, and like it just looks bad. And then it comes to find out that it's somebody just kicking around some AI generated images, and it feels just amateurish for the platform and what they're trying to do. So you'd probably just have to be more strict about it. And let's face it, is anyone really going to be sad if these AI games don't make it through?
Well, I probably not. No. I think well, go ahead.
I was gonna say you're gonna have false positives, like you said, and that's just kind of, you're gonna have to deal with it. It's gonna be tough.
I just think there's not as simple of an answer here that some would say, but it's like the eShop's getting hit pretty hard with this stuff.
Oh, God.
PSN
can't even navigate the thing.
Yeah, the last time I looked at the eShop, at least it was a lot of it. Sad. Like you got to go pretty far to find some like genuine games. So PSN's not quite there yet, but like if they don't start like getting on top of this stuff, they are going to be pretty overwhelmed, I find.
Yep.
So that happened. We got more industry news, though. Some wider industry news. One of the last few big publishers made a pretty big change recently. Ubisoft confirming that they've got a new subsidiary in collaboration with Tencent. So they formed a new subsidiary where Tencent is owning a 25% stake. The new company is valued at 4 billion euro, and 1.16 or 1.20 of that is coming from Tencent, something like that. The new subsidiary will house teams and IP responsible for Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. What that means for the remainder of the parent organization and all the other IP they have remains to be seen.
Yeah, they seemed a little concerned about that. The employees, I would too, because it's like, wait, you guys get to go to the nice funded place with more than $1 billion. We got to sit here, and if you're on like the Division, which the Division's that's a big franchise for Ubisoft, the Division 3, you still got to be a little concerned if you're that team, or you're on Rayman right now, or Splinter Cell, or Prince of Persia. Yeah, you're like, ooh, we better hit with this release, or that might be it for us.
I like how the Guillemot family literally said, like, okay, we're gonna pick like the best three.
Basically.
And I was like, I don't think you're gonna feel very good if you're on the other side of that coin, John.
No. And I mean, the Division should be up there. I think the last one too sold like 11 or 12 million copies. But Far Cry is a storied franchise that has worked for them just about every time. Obviously, Rainbow Six Siege does very well for them, despite them not really innovating or upgrading it that much. And then Assassin's Creed is self-explanatory. It's like their biggest mainstream franchise right now that they had like 10 games in development for or something. Yeah. So you're right. They did kind of line up all their kids and pick their favorites in front of them.
I just would not feel very safe if I was at Ubisoft right about now. You got to figure like a lot of those properties are either up for sale or some, redundancies that are going to start happening. It's brutal, man.
If there was like I mean, obviously the big three, they've named them, they've brought them in. I think they're kind of off the table: Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, or Rainbow Six. Any of the ones that are left over, do you think is there one you think Sony should try to get? No, okay.
It's just not. It's just not how the company operates. I'd be very shocked if something like that happened.
Because that was the word going around that they were looking to maybe sell off some of these IPs.
I would think Sony is not at all remotely interested.
Huh? Okay. I mean, because I'm thinking because they have their Sony Picture stuff, they're doing like, is there one they could look at and be like, oh, can we make a movie or a TV series out of this?
I mean, I think at that point that would be like just PlayStation Productions stepping in,
Yeah.
Or it would be Sony Pictures, which oddly enough, those two are very different from one another, Sony Pictures and PlayStation Productions. But I mean, as far as games, like SIE builds their own properties and they fund their own studios and they work with longtime partners. I mean, you're just not going to see Sony pick up IP or anything like that. I mean, I would most certainly think that would be a Microsoft thing.
I was thinking even EA.
Yeah, I could see that too. That would probably be like if I woke up tomorrow and I saw that as a press release, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this really goofy patent. Every so often we get these patents show up and they get publicized and it's like, that sounds pretty silly. I'm sure you saw this one. SIE patents solar cells in a controller. This was spotted by Tech for Gamers. This patent was filed by SIE and it's for an operation device, which is basically describing them putting photovoltaic elements in a controller. So you would be able to charge the controller via solar. I want to talk about this because would you categorize this, John, as one of those patents that sounds ridiculous and it never happens? Or would you think it's actually going to happen?
I think it's so funny. I think this is more likely than people would expect. The only reason for that is I should have brought it in here. It's out in the living room.
You have it?
No, my remote. So the remote that I have
one
for the Samsung, on the back of it has solar cells.
Yes,
on the back of the remote.
I know. I think
it's really funny.
The thing is, though, like that's such a low power device. I feel like a controller that doesn't work at all.
It is, and it's you literally just flip it. I've never plugged a thing in. It doesn't have batteries to change out, obviously, if it's doing that. But I have just left it sometimes on its front with the back up where the solar panels, like those little frames are. Mm-hmm. I guess it's charged from it. It doesn't give a battery indicator or anything, but it has USB-C on the bottom, never plugged it in.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's got a use case. It's got a use case. This one, I just thought, at first I was like, this is dumb. This ain't happening.
I'm trying to think where they put it in because they showed it on it can't go on the handle. You're going to like rub the stuff off of it or the coating or something, right? From holding it.
Well, I guess that's the thing. Like it would feel weird. And this is a device you hold. I just think more so like if we're talking about a controller that's going to have haptics and triggers and a light bar and you're actively holding it. And also it's like, I know the remote, like it can accept like indoor lighting, but as far as like how solar power goes, like the vast majority of that power comes from natural light.
You just put it next to the window.
Yeah, so you need like light coming in. That depends on the direction of your house. And I'm reading this. I'm like, this shit ain't happening.
It might be just something to put in the back drawer just in case there's some breakthrough 15 years from now or something in solar.
Right.
Power,
that's I think what it reads as. But like every so often, you see like a few game sites like run away with these patents and put it up as a story, and it's like, that one's
a funny idea though. Just to see what their ideas are for some of these things. It is kind of funny.
Nothing will beat the McDonald's.
Yeah, where he's like, yeah, okay, cool. Now you can watch your movie.
Nothing will beat that, man. Nothing will beat that.
That was great.
McDonald's.
And just like 1 a.m. trying to just like watch Solo Leveling, and it stops halfway through, and they're like, now yell McDonald's. And you're like, McDonald's, no, stand up and yell McDonald's. McDonald's, you're just like this idiot in your living room in the middle of the night yelling McDonald's at your TV.
In a weird way, I want to do it just once. Just once. Then never again. Never. Then I'll be mad that I have that. The Last of Us HBO, John, coming out very soon, or right near the premiere. Speaking with the Hollywood Reporter, the co-creator, writer, and executive producer Craig Mazin said flat out he's not going past the game for the TV series. He was even referring to how people might think that's a cash grab if they do go for that. However, this is a very different answer from what Neil said when he was speaking with IGN last week, where he was asked if the show would go past the games. Neil said he will leave nothing on the line, and he said, and I quote, "As far as everything else, and you're asking me about future games, my time so much is we have to finish this season. We're not quite done. We're almost there. Knock on wood, we get to do it again. Season 3, there's a lot more story we have to cover, as you know, with Game 2. And then my hands are pretty full with Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet." They've said before that they're not going to go past the games. The issue is Craig can say that. Maybe even Neil goes, okay, it's sacred and I don't want to go past the games either. They could bring somebody else in. They own it. They if they want to,
absolutely could.
They could. I do respect that Craig said he personally will not do it himself, though. I really respect that answer.
I think there's also the success for this with HBO. It's hard to understate that right now, and some of the influence. Like, let's say this next season happens, and then he said they're going to get a couple seasons out of the second game, right?
Yeah. Let's say
it just keeps building, and it's an incredible amount of viewership, and it's a huge pull for HBO. Is it possible that they take the franchise, not necessarily go past the second game, but move laterally and just make up an original character and story in the world, and specifically do it for like streaming?
I could see that. The thing I think about is that, at the end of the day, if HBO wants it, they still have to secure it. Like PlayStation owns it, and yep. PlayStation has been very protective of this property, so you would think that they put it up on this pedestal, and maybe they really would just respect the idea of like, well, no, the core people that have made this thing and fostered it into what it is. They do not want to go. They do not want to keep doing it. So right. let's not push it. That's how I think they should have looked at it, but we'll see.
It's so interesting because that world, we've followed these specific people, but it's like there's an entire world that's also happening at the same time here. And how many stories could they technically form that would never even have to come into contact with like Ellie or anything?
Yeah. You're not wrong. I mean, there's more stories to tell, but it's like as much flack The Last of Us gets for like, it's been around for a long time now, and Sony always re-releases the games or, this, that, and the fourth. But it's like, well, it probably could have been a lot worse as far as like they start doing all these spinoffs and start giving the IP to any showrunner and spitting out all these projects and comics and merchandise the hell out of it. They do seem to, for the most part, still highly regard the property in such a manner that it's not, I think, as in your face as one maybe would think.
Yeah.
Did you see this Until Dawn PS3 prototype? This
yeah, I did. That was
this playthrough.
That was interesting. It was first person. It You know, I will say it looked really good for a PS3 game. I'll give them that.
So it's actually been like pretty well documented. Like, because the channel that had the full playthrough, that's the news here, is that there's like a full playthrough of this PS3 prototype on YouTube. It's a very fascinating watch. That channel is the one that already like had archived footage of like various chapters from like, I think they had it like 3 years ago. So we've seen a lot of this footage, but it's still like, if you heard about this, it is a very cool thing within PlayStation history because the game was initially at London Studio. It was a PS3 game. It was a Move title. Then it was moved to Supermassive. They still had a PS3 build, but at a certain point, they moved it over to Decima, which some people don't know. Until Dawn is a Decima engine game, and it was moved to PS4, dropped PS Move support. But there is like a playable, like from start to finish PS3 build, and you can watch it on YouTube. And it's like, it's super janky. If you watch it, it's kind of insane how complete and incomplete it is. Like there's some like placeholder animations and placeholder voice acting or whatever. I mean, there's so much of it looks broken, but it's still like it's something you can very much play to the end.
I think I like the version we got because once I saw Move support come into play, I'm like, ooh, okay. Although the first person mode kind of intriguing still in a horror game. I know people like third person a lot, but something about first person and being more up close and personal, just I think is better for horror game. Personally, I think it's better for horror games. So I don't mind like when Resident Evil went to first person as much as everyone else seemed to. But this is one that I think they made the right call in moving it around.
That's an interesting point you just said. That you weren't that psyched about Ari's transition.
No, I like them going to first person, but there are a lot of people who didn't. And it seems like just a lot of people like third person over first person, whereas I'm kind of indifferent. It depends on the genre in the game. So when it's a shooter, I actually like first person over third person. But when it's an adventure game with platforming and shooting, I prefer third person. So it really depends. Horror, I still think it's better to be first person and be right up on the action.
But it would appear as though you're not a fan of PlayStation Move.
Not as much. Not for. I think it was fun at first. You know what I really liked was the frisbee golf. That was fun. But frisbee golf was fun. But the Move stuff, it was kind of like the Wii remote. After a little while, it just kind of okay. We've done this. I'm good. I don't know. It's almost like VR now, where it's when you get it all broken out and stuff. It's cool. Like it's fun. It's interesting. But man, getting it set up.
I do not think that's no.
What you're fine, really. I thought I was here, and I'm kind of the same way. It's like, man, I gotta set this whole thing up and do all this, and
no, I think no, I agree with that, but I think VR is like actually good versus PlayStation Move.
No, I mean the setup. I'm thinking of like at the time,
they're both
PS4 VR.
They're both a pain in the ass to set up. Yeah.
The PSVR 2 is less because you plug it in and you go like one cable, right? Is the idea. But the room setup sometimes now I'm not sitting down, I'm standing up, and there's less couch gaming, more involved, I guess. It's that sense of it sounds fun, and then it's like, now I got to set all this up. Move was kind of like that for me too. But you're right, because you have to do the motion, right? You have to move. You gotta like do the thing where like you gotta sync it. I remember doing that with the frisbee golf and the sports game. It's like up here, over here. That didn't work. Okay, let's do it again and again.
I think by the time you're done setting it up, it's like gameplay wise, one was a lot more compelling than the other. PS Move had some issues. Yeah, it sounds like you didn't play BioShock Infinite with PS Move support. So
I did not.
Damn.
How was that for you?
I tried it.
Oh yeah, was it all right?
Yeah, it was fine. I wouldn't play it like that, but it worked.
I played Infinite the regular way.
Well, I think that's about it, John.
Have you done a video exploring all the Move compatible games yet?
I'd like to. It's on the list. I've got.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had one, because I would legitimately go check that out just to see what I missed in the Move era.
I've got a list of videos I'd love to get to at some point. That's on there for sure.
That'd be interesting. Get the whole gun for Killzone.
I've got it.
In SOCOM.
I've got it. I look pretty cool holding that thing.
Do you?
Just gonna say.
Move controller, man.
Yeah.
Those are the days. Weird Sony. All right, so you got a PSX going to give it to you.
I always do. That, in a way, that was a PSX going to give it to you, but we'll give you.
It kind of was.
We'll give you a double dip.
Okay.
It's funny. I got a running list here. I'm like, oh, here's all the PSX going to give it to you topics. The part of the show, of course, where people get some history lessons on what happened throughout PlayStation's timeline here. Maybe something a little nostalgic, unique, maybe a feature you never heard about. I always love this one. So, PS3 supports 7 controllers, and that's the that's the feature, because that is a thing. You've touched on this recently with that one upload, but you can connect up to 7 DualShock 3s or 6-axis if you're feeling a little cheeky. But they're very much local play PlayStation 3 games that let you play up to 7 goddamn people in the same room. Some people don't know that, because on the DualShock 3, where it has the lights on the controller, where it just signifies player 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'd think, well, what happens when it's 5? Well, 1 and then 4 lights up to show that.
Yes, I have a tweet that shows that.
Yep, to show that it's player number 5.
And you know what's interesting is in that tweet, there are a lot of people who legitimately had no idea that was a thing. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right, Ryan. So many people were like, what? You can really? They had no idea. Hold on, let me see. I have the video here. I can put it up on screen for you while you're narrating this.
Well, Ryan, a lot of sports games would be the ones that support this, because
that's what we'll do.
Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you think to yourself, like, well, okay, that's fine and dandy. What the hell would you play with that? There's a lot of sports games. We're talking like, I think it was. Oh, I don't remember exact sports games, but I think it's like
FIFA.
Well, FIFA's one of them. Doesn't NBA too? Because you've got that court view, so you can do like up to 7 people on that.
I believe so. Yeah, wrestling games would use 6 people. I don't know if they did full 7.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is 6, but they did more than 4. Like, people look at this and go, oh, it's 4 players. No, technically Ryan's right. It's 7. It's like, you don't really realize it until, and at one point I did hook up, I think there's a video. I think I hooked up 7 controllers and I got to 3 and 4.
Oh yeah. You can do it. It's one of those things. It's like, it's just always the sort of PS3 story of like, man, they just like building that console and like brainstorming it. It's like somebody was just like writing down a list of like everybody in the room, like saying it should do this. Yep, got that down. Oh yeah, we should do printing support. Okay, got it down. We should support server rack. Yep. Other OS. Yep. 7 controllers. What? You son of a bitch. Writes it down.
Hey, I gotta say though, Ryan, you're right. There are a lot of people who had no idea. That tweet was like 11 million views or something, and most of the responses were, I had no idea this was a thing.
Right. Like, what the fuck?
But also think about it. At the time, how much money did you have to have a PlayStation 3 and 6 extra controllers? Because you said the one, it came with it. 6 more controllers on top of the $600 system.
Do you think there was a guy out there that like day one for PS3, he was like, oh yeah, fam, and get me another 6-axis because I want to make sure that I can play with up to 7 people. So he had to buy. So in total, the man would have 7 6-axis controllers because he knew 7-player games were going to be a thing. And he was
$960.
He was looking to host some party nights. You know what I'm saying?
FIFA. When did they start supporting 7 players?
That I don't know. I don't know what the first game would be. I think there's like some PSN stuff too, like some, sort of like smaller scale titles that would have like just on-screen characters, and that can maybe go up to 7. I think some of those titles supported 7 as well.
Would it have been? What was the first FIFA game on the PS3? Was it 08?
You would think it would be just the very first year. But I guess it's not. I'm trying to remember. Was there a FIFA game in the PS3 launch lineup? I don't think there was.
I don't see 07. I think 07 was just.
Oh, might be. Yeah, might be 08. Might be.
Oh, 08 has 1 to 7 players.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it.
There you go.
That's the move.
John, we should bring a PS3 to Too Many Games and then 7 controllers, and then we should all play on the same screen.
That would actually blow some people's minds. That's a thing.
I've got enough controllers.
Now we do.
Got enough consoles too.
We do have a lot of consoles.
Yeah.
We have a lot of PS3s between us.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be an interesting show. 7 controllers on the PS3, and none of us know how to play FIFA.
I mean, I know where the ball has to go.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. But we just got to figure out what button passes and shoots. I think circle shoots and cross passes. Which one's cross? Yeah, that'd be a whole thing.
Right. Yeah, because that's the conversation people are having.
Hey, people are busy arguing X versus cross. Meanwhile, I'm scoring and winning. So it's all strategy. It's all part of the strategy. Got to distract them with the cross X conversation. That's a good one though for PSX. Going to give it to you, Ryan. That's a good one.
Indeed, it is. That's it, John. That's all I got for you.
It was a fun show. 2.5 hours. A lot of interesting stuff. Game prices going up.
Efficient show.
Space scenarios. This whole thing. But still a good show. Shout out to everyone who tuned in. Appreciate it. Whether you're on YouTube or over on Spotify or podcast networks that we're uploading to. Appreciate it. Hey, you know what? Throw us a rating on Spotify if you're listening to us on that. Throw a comment too. I've been seeing that pop up. People do comment on Spotify.
Do they?
Give a shout out. Yeah, I know. I never really think about it on Spotify to like leave a comment, but people do. So, hey, shout out to them for doing so. Of course, throw us a like on YouTube if you enjoyed it. We appreciate that as well. As for now, though, that's Ryan. Check him out. I have him in the description, of course. I'm sure he has some PlayStation stuff coming. Maybe conversation around physical media. We'll see. Let's talk PlayStation, though, is on Fridays, including this week. All right. Otherwise, though, that's Click R3, number 20. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to do it all over again. We'll see you guys then.